Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3, the game streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. We are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. The chairman of the board, David Reed, is back. Reed, how are you?
I'm a lot better than I have been.
Last couple days been tough, eh?
Been rough, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to see that you've made it back and you're strong and looking better than ever, Reed. Great stuff, as always. Now, I could, after the end of the midday show, I could go on and on and on and on and on about Bill Belichick and the complete fool that he is making out of himself. But I know that we care more about the Titans around here, though we will get to Bill throughout today's program. But I want to get to something on Monday that I guess left me wanting a little bit more. So at the very beginning of the process, you know, the process that the Titans kept talking about. We had to go through the process. We had to be honest to the process. We had to hear out the Giants' ridiculous trade offer that we declined because we had to for the process. Throughout the process, Mike Borgonzi has said one thing about drafting a young quarterback. In fact, this goes back to the Senior Bowl, which was about a week after Borgonzi was hired by the Titans. This was from Sirius XM NFL Radio. Pat Kerwin asked him, what did he learn in Kansas City about the Patrick Mahomes situation that he can apply forward in Tennessee? Here's what Mike Borgonzi said then.
Yeah, you know, you have to have a plan. I think that's the biggest thing when you draft one of these guys, and we certainly had a plan in Kansas City. You know, we were blessed to have Alex Smith there at the time, and he kind of took him under his wing. But, you know, there was temptations there to play him early on because, you know, he's just the physical talent that he has. But I think it's important as an organization to be aligned and having a plan for that quarterback when you bring him in. And some of these guys are ready to play right away, but you have to have a plan coming in and evaluate them through OTAs and training camp to see if they're ready to play.
Have to have a plan. So you have to have a plan with the young quarterback. Kansas City drafted Patrick Mahomes, and Andy Reid went downstairs to the press conference and said, Alex Smith is the starter, and Mahomes is not ready. And then when asked about Mahomes and the weaknesses in Mahomes' game at the time was he takes too many chances, he's too much of a gunslinger, and Andy Reid said, well, I coached Brett Favre, so I've been around the greatest gunslinger there ever was. I think I can handle this. Well, now that takes us to the Titans. Mike Borgonzi is in the decision-making chair now, and he has drafted a young quarterback. So I understand not revealing the plan when you aren't sure if you're going to draft him or you haven't technically drafted him yet or anything else. But as of Thursday night, he's your property now. He is a Tennessee Titan. He's getting $40 million in order to be a Tennessee Titan. So Mike Borgonzi, now that he's your quarterback, what is the plan?
You've talked about a plan for a rookie quarterback. What is that plan in terms of I know you work with Brian on that, but what is the plan in terms of reps and alignment and work?
Yeah, we've had a lot of discussions with Brian about that. And I think as we head into the off season here, you know, like I said, it's going to be a competition, and these guys are going to get, you know, equal amount of reps right at the beginning, and you know, they'll separate themselves here as we head into training camp. But the idea here is to, you know, have competition in the room, and Brian and his staff, you know, as we go through the off season, get into training camp, I'm sure the reps will change at some point, you know, when people separate themselves.
So what's the plan? Is the plan just to have Cam Ward get as many first-team reps as Will Levis? Is the plan for Cam Ward in 8 OTA practices to get as many opportunities and as many snaps as Tim Boyle? Is that the plan? And this is what takes me to the Titans, and it makes me very skeptical about whether or not Cam Ward is going to succeed. I'm not one of these people that says because they failed with Vince Young and because they failed with Mariota and because they failed with Jake Locker and because they failed with Will Levis that they will for sure fail with Cam Ward. Many people who are involved in the process are different than the people that were involved when Vince Young was the quarterback. It's just a fact. But I am very skeptical about the legitimacy of the plan with which the Titans are operating on. Because again, it's easy to say, hey, you have to have a plan. In Kansas City, we had a plan. We had Alex Smith there. When Mahomes wasn't ready, we had the temptation to play him, but we didn't do it because we had the plan. Well, what's the plan here? Because the plan here sounds like just rolling the ball out and saying, okay, Cam, go get him. And it's not as if the Titans in the offseason went out and signed a quarterback who could legitimately be the starter around here. It's not going to be Levis. He stinks. It's not going to be Brandon Allen. He's a backup. Tim Boyle, he can't start. They've tried in certain instances to put him in there. And I remember a Black Friday game on Amazon 2 years ago that Tim Boyle started for the Jets. It was one of the most painful games to watch in the history of televised football. He's not going to be the quarterback. So what's the plan? Other than we're just going to stick him out there and say, okay, Cam, go get him. And usually, when there is a legitimate plan in place, after you give up any strategic ability to, there's nothing to hide by saying, okay, here's our plan for our young quarterback. There is no strategic advantage. Before the draft, got it. After the draft, everybody knows Cam Ward's a Titan. So take us through the plan. And when you just say, yeah, we're going to have competition, we're going to have reps, we're going to figure it out, that to me is not a plan. And before you tell me, well, in Kansas City, Jared, let me remind you about who was in Kansas City and who was ahead of Mike Borgonzi as far as the hierarchy is concerned. The offensive coordinator of the Kansas City Chiefs, when they drafted Patrick Mahomes, was Matt Nagy. Matt Nagy then went to Chicago. In Chicago, they drafted a young quarterback by the name of Justin Fields. They had a plan for Andy Dalton to be the starting quarterback and for Fields to sit the bench. Midway through the season, Matt Nagy, in risk of losing his job, played Justin Fields. That's not great as far as execution of the plan is concerned. Again, that's another lieutenant that tried to do the Kansas City thing somewhere else, didn't work. The general manager in Chicago, Ryan Poles, was a part of the hierarchy of the Kansas City Chiefs when Mike Borgonzi was there. And Ryan Poles, into Justin Fields and now Caleb Williams, seems to be making mistake after mistake after mistake. I mean, I couldn't even believe when they drafted Luther Burden the other day. I said, well, what are they doing in Chicago? And Chris Ballard, he comes from Kansas City. He was working with Mike Borgonzi every day. Chris Ballard drafted Anthony Richardson 4th overall. And I loved Anthony Richardson. And if you listen to this program at the time of the 2023 draft and you're honest about it and not just, you love Richardson, Richardson sucks, you know that in order for me to think that Anthony Richardson was going to reach his potential, which I was in love with, I was enamored with, and every now and then you'll see a throw Anthony Richardson makes where you see a little bit of that. I said, you've got to draft him. You've got to sit him on the bench. You've got to turn around and hand the ball to Jonathan Taylor. You've got to get him a tight end. And Chris Ballard in Indianapolis has done none of that. They didn't sit him on the bench. They played him before he was ready. They didn't hand the ball to Jonathan Taylor 25 times a game. They got into a contract dispute with Jonathan Taylor, who played in one game with Anthony Richardson his rookie year. Anthony Richardson not ready to play, can't read NFL defenses. What does a young quarterback do? They take off, and he got hurt. They just now, last week, drafted Anthony Richardson, a tight end. For the last 2 years, it's been Mo Alley Cox. What's the plan in Indianapolis? What was the plan other than we're just going to throw Anthony Richardson out there? We're going to feed him to the wolves before he's ready. So I'm not saying that they don't have a plan. But when you don't articulate the plan after telling us at the very beginning, got to have a plan, got to have a plan, got to have a plan, it does start to make me think that you really don't have one. At least one that's any different than what most teams do, which is throw the young guy out there before they're ready because the fans and the owner want to see him play right away. Then what happens is he goes out on the field, he's in over his head, he gets beaten to a pulp, he loses games, fans boo him, And now all of a sudden you're starting all over again 3 years from now. So for the umpteenth time, because I know in Kansas City, we had a plan in Kansas City. Can you tell me what your plan is? Because right now, the other Kansas City lieutenants, Matt Nagy in Chicago, Ryan Poles in Chicago, Chris Ballard in Indianapolis, I don't like their plans very much. So please tell me what yours is so that 3 years from now, we're not having the same discussion. 615-737-1025 is our phone number if you want to weigh in. That's 615-737-1025. And again, it's one thing before the draft to say, hey, what's the plan for the young quarterback if you drafted him? Well, we haven't drafted the young quarterback. Now you've drafted him. So what's the plan for the young quarterback? And there's something Mel Kiper Jr. said over the weekend that I actually agree with, even though Mel is getting absolutely barbecued for saying it. And we'll get to that coming up next because I think it's very valid to this situation. 615-737-1025, Stillman and Company, 1025, 106 for the game.
the television show has overtaken the draft. And so on Saturday, or I'm sorry, on Thursday and Friday, we're hearing, we don't understand this. How can Shedeur be falling? This is terrible. Somebody think these people don't know what they're doing. Yes, we do. We know exactly what we're doing. You don't know 1/3 of the process, and that's the problem.
That was Bill Polian, former NFL general manager on SiriusXM NFL Radio. Again, and he's talking about Mel Kiper. I mean, let's not kid ourselves here. He's talking about Mel Kiper Jr., and he's talking about how, you turn on TV and they're yelling and screaming and they're this and they're that and they're, and it's, you don't know, Mr. TV. You do not know, you talking heads, us people in the business that have all the information, that have scouts that have visited the schools, that have quarterback coaches that have gone on the board with these guys, that we have more information than you don't know. And Polian is right. Polian is right. But the headline that Mel Kiper Jr. made in his weekend-long temper tantrum about Shedeur Sanders' fall down the draft board is kind of getting Mel Kiper Jr. roasted. And it goes back to Mel Kiper Jr. wagging his finger and saying that the NFL for 50 years does not know how to develop and evaluate quarterbacks. Here's what Mel said on Saturday on ESPN.
Boomer Esiason was not happy when he was a second-round pick. Tom Brady was not as happy. They dropped. How'd they turn out?
And you know what? Nobody's arguing that can happen.
Race, the NFL has been clueless for 50 years when it comes to evaluating quarterback. Clueless. No idea what they're doing in terms of evaluating quarterback. That's proof. There's proof of that.
How many
times say we know exactly what we're talking about with quarterback? They don't.
Okay, so Mel says that, and it becomes a big headline, and everybody's talking about social media, and even somebody tweeted me and said, how can Mel Kiper Jr. say that the NFL does not know when it comes to evaluating quarterbacks when he was the one that loved Jimmy Clausen, and he was the one that loved Will Levis? And I'm like, guys, that is so complicated. That is such a big, it's so much bigger than Mel Kiper saying the NFL doesn't know. And Bill Polian, who I think in this instance probably does represent the NFL, saying Mel Kiper and those a-holes on TV, they do not know. I think it is much more complicated than that. I think it is much more complicated than the league. They ruin all these quarterbacks. All these guys get drafted in round one, and not all of them hit. And it's because the league doesn't know. It's because Indianapolis and the rest of the league that viewed Anthony Richardson as a high first-round pick, they don't know. Is it that? Is it that, or is it that this is a lot more complicated of a process than just, he's good, he's bad? Because that's what I believe. First of all, everybody misses when it comes to evaluating quarterbacks. Everybody. Me, Bill Belichick, Mel Kiper, although Bill Polian did have a lot of hits at quarterback, everybody misses. Bill Walsh, who I consider to be the greatest offensive coach in the history of the NFL. Go look at Bill Walsh's tree of coaches. I believe Bill Walsh is the best offensive coach in the history of ball. Bill Walsh once said that Rick Meyer, the second overall pick who couldn't throw to one side of the field, was the next Joe Montana. So everybody is going to swing and miss when it comes to evaluating quarterbacks. That doesn't mean that some guys, i.e. Walsh, i.e. Andy Reid, Sean Payton, that those guys understand it better than others, Bill Parcells, but everybody's going to swing and miss. It happens. Andy Reid drafted Kevin Kolb. It happens. Secondly, because the draft is a TV show and the draft is very popular. I mean, we're talking about the draft. If your team sucks, you're talking about the draft in October. The draft is very popular. Teams do not want to trade future first-round draft picks the way they have in the past, simply because the value of the pick, the non-tangible value to an owner, to a fan base is much higher because people care about the draft now when they did not used to care about it as much in recent years. But evaluating quarterback, I believe, is part of why they become successful. The development of the quarterback is equally as important, if not more important. And I use Andy Reid as the example. Andy Reid drafted Patrick Mahomes, and they even played the cut on the draft on Saturday, the best of Mel Kiper, when Mahomes got picked, and Mel Kiper said, I'm so tired of all these guys dinking and dunking. This guy is a gunslinger. He throws the ball down the field. Sometimes he's too reckless throwing the ball down the field, but he is not going to bubble screen and dink and dunk. He is going to take shots, and he is going to. And Andy Reid said when he was drafted, he's not ready. He traded 2 1s and a 3 and went to the podium and said, he's not ready. And told those fans, don't expect to see him. If Mahomes had been put out there that first year and they had said, go get him, Patrick, who's to say those issues that he had at Texas Tech that people were concerned about, who's to say they wouldn't have looked at that and said, that turned the ball over too much, playing hero ball out there. He doesn't know what he's doing. I watched Bryce Young play college football at Alabama. I thought Bryce Young was a very good quarterback. And even though he was too short for my liking, and I would not have taken him number 1 overall, I did think that Bryce Young had some promise coming into the NFL. He goes to Carolina, who trades away their number 1 receiver that would have been his receiver. They trade him away, and they trade away all these other picks, and they've got a crappy coach in Frank Reich, and they say, here you go, Bryce Young. You're setting the kid up for failure. Did you know that a year before Andy Reid drafted Patrick Mahomes and made Mahomes the guy and developed him on the bench, there was a prospect that both Andy Reid and the Chiefs and Jerry Jones and the Cowboys wanted to acquire, and they couldn't. His name was Paxton Lynch, a quarterback out of Memphis. Kansas City tried, Dallas tried, Denver got him. Everybody wanted Paxton Lynch. Andy Reid even said after they didn't get him, Andy Reid said he's going to have a great career. Well, Paxton Lynch is a bust. Would he have been a bust if Andy Reid was the coach? So when I hear people talk about the NFL does not get it, I'm like, guys, this is so much more complicated than you think. Everybody wants greatness right away because it happened with Mahomes, but it didn't really. You just didn't see all the work they put in with Mahomes. It happened with Lamar Jackson, but it's almost like we totally forget that Charger playoff game Lamar Jackson played in 2018. He wasn't ready. Josh Allen was awful his first 2 years in the NFL. And those guys are the exception, not the rule. That's why it's not uncommon to see a guy like Ryan Tannehill go from Miami to Tennessee, and all of a sudden, wow, he's actually pretty good. Yeah, he should be. It's year 7. Sam Darnold goes to Minnesota. Wow, he's actually pretty good. Geno Smith goes to Seattle. Wow, he's actually pretty good. Yeah, because they've developed the quarterback. We think it's as simple as, okay, I drafted him and he's great and I'm a genius and no. You develop these guys. When Andy Reid was asked about sitting on the bench with Patrick Mahomes, he said, and John Dorsey was the general manager at the time, he said, well, John Dorsey comes from Green Bay. They had Aaron Rodgers on the bench. So, I mean, again, I'm not here to relitigate Jimmy Clausen. And I'm not even really here to relitigate Will Levis. I'll tell you this. I think the Titans did everything they could to screw Levis up. Absolutely everything they could have done. He got no reps in training camp. They put him out there behind a terrible offensive line. He had very few receivers. Then they anointed him the starting quarterback. The owner told the fans, be excited about our young quarterback. They started telling people this time last year he was a franchise quarterback. They ignored other quarterback options. They just gifted him the position. And he decided he was going to start acting like he was Tom Brady. He wasn't ready for that. I watched the Browns with Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield was Rookie of the Year in 2018. They then fired the head coach, promoted the offensive coordinator, Freddie Kitchens, a total boob, to head coach, went out and signed Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham and said, all right, Baker, go throw it 50 times a game in year 2. He wasn't ready. Jaden Daniels is the exception. I watched Trevor Lawrence play college football. There's no doubt Trevor Lawrence has been absolutely misused by the Jacksonville Jaguars, and it started with the horrendous decision, which I celebrated at the time, of hiring Urban Meyer to be his head coach. So when you look at Mel Kiper, and he's getting roasted for the fact that he said, oh, when it comes to quarterbacks, the NFL, they don't get it. Tom Brady was a 6th-round pick. The NFL, they don't get it. Well, to a certain extent, he's right. But it's not so much the selection of the quarterback, though that is important, and there are certain talents and traits and things like that you have to have in order to be good. But it's also how the organizations develop these guys. And that's why I look at the Titans, and I'm like, look, Cam Ward's got talent. Like, I believe Cam Ward can play in the NFL. I believe Cam Ward can be a star in the NFL. I believe Cam Ward was a first-round talent. But there's going to be a lot that goes into his development. A lot. And I don't know if the Titans have the right chefs to be able to prepare the meal. I don't think the Titans have the right patience to be able to develop the young man. And then when Mike Borgonzi's asked what the plan is, he doesn't really have an answer. And that's what makes me really nervous. But it is not as simple as, oh, well, this guy took that guy, he sucks. I've said this a million times, and I'll say it again. If you lived here in 2006, you remember Vince Young's rookie year. Vince Young was Rookie of the Year. He went to the Pro Bowl. The Titans, I believe, started that season like 0-6, and they finished the year 8-8. You talk about a turnaround, and really a turnaround keyed by one guy. It was Vince Young. Vince Young, and again, I know how Vince Young's career worked out, and I know Vince Young, other than his win-loss stat, every number he has was terrible. Vince Young, that first year in the league, he was the man. Vince Young, as a rookie, led the NFL with 4 fourth-quarter comebacks and 5 game-winning drives. You just watched him and thought, oh, my God, he's special. And now we look back at Vince Young's career, and we're like, yeah, Vince Young was a bust. I mean, he threw his pads into the stands, didn't take well to the coaching, went to TGI Fridays, lost all of his money, acted like a total a-hole. We remember all of that. And so when people would put that at the feet of Floyd, because he drafted Vince Young, although a lot of people believe that was a Bud Adams pick, I used to always say, what happened to Vince Young? And he'd say the same thing every time. All I know is when I was here, he was Rookie of the Year and headed to the Pro Bowl. And what happened after I left, I don't know. Translation, they screwed up. The NFL ruins more of these quarterbacks than they develop. It is not they don't know when it comes to evaluating quarterbacks. I believe it is these owners get impatient. Some of these coaches are just bad, like Adam Gase. Some of these coaches are inexperienced. They're better coordinators than they are head coaches, like Shane Steichen. And they just don't know how to develop the quarterback because it is a long, complicated process. And so, yeah, Mel got it wrong with Jimmy Clausen, but how much of that was Carolina not taking care of Jimmy Clausen? I don't know. Certainly the Titans didn't do anything to help Will Levis. So when it comes to Cam, that's what I keep wanting answers to is, okay, so now you've taken him. I would have made the trade with the Giants. So would pretty much everybody else except for the text line who absolutely thinks Cam is Mahomes 2.0 and does not need a second on the bench. But now what are you going to do? What are you going to do to set the young guy up for success? And if just sticking him out there and having him play with Chig is the answer, that's not going to work for me. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number. 615-737-1025. We will get to your phones. A lot of you want to weigh in on this on the quarterback, and we will continue that. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Plus, what Mel Kiper had to say now that he's passing out grades, what he said about the Titans, and I think there's a little bitterness in Mel's voice. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company here on the program. Tune in to 94.9 The Fan tonight as the Sounds take on Gwinnett. Pre-game at 5:50. First pitch at 6:05. Coverage also available on the Game Nashville app and at theGameNashville.com. Sounds baseball on 94.9 The Fan, presented by Twin Peaks and by Family Leisure. And also, let's be sure that this week's Nationals Best Deal, to tell you, is Prince's Hot Chicken, the original and iconic hot chicken joint. For a limited time, grab half off a $25 gift card at theGameNashville.com/deals.
Cam Ward this year to take the journey he did from Incarnate Word to Washington State and to clean up a couple of things. He needed to clean up two things: take fewer sacks and don't fumble the ball. And he still holds that ball out there like a loaf of bread. And Callahan talked about, hey, I want a quarterback that when everybody knows they're throwing in the stadium, we can get the ball job done. How they're wired is important to him. Cam Ward comes into the NFL where he has to be less reckless and less careless with the football. And if he does, he's got the arm talent and the athleticism, mobility, and the attitude and the approach to be a hell of a quarterback. So he's going to be asked to be it. Guess what? The Tennessee Titans have done a lot around the quarterback to enhance his opportunity to be successful right away. I'm talking about the offensive line and weapons around him. And that offensive line last year was awful. They've improved it. And now he has, like I say, a better chance as a rookie to step in and do his job.
There you go. That was Mel on Cam Ward. And I think you could tell a little of the anger that Mel had in the end there when he was like, he's going to have a better chance with some of the moves they've made to step in and be successful than Will Levis, whom we all know Mel loved. Here's a question I'd have for Mel. Mel, right now, who do you think is going to be the better quarterback? Because I've gone on record and said I love Sam Darnold, and I've gone on record and said I think Sam Darnold will be a better quarterback than Cam Ward. Mel, will you say that Will Levis, all things being equal, 3 years from now, would be a better quarterback than Cam Ward? Would you rather have, this would be the question I have for Mel Kiper Jr., would you rather have Will Levis or Cam Ward? I'd rather have Ward, but I do wonder what Mel would say. Andrew says, how narcissistic or crazy does Mel Kiper have to be to think that he knows better than the people that have actually played, coached, and managed football for decades? Kiper sucks, is constantly wrong, and doesn't deserve all that attention. Number one, Mel Kiper's job is to be entertaining on television, and I don't know about you guys, but I think he is. Number two, Mel Kiper Jr. basically created that position for himself. And regardless of whether or not you agree with Mel or disagree with Mel, Mel does come off as informed to viewers. So make of it what you will. Mel's good at what he does. He's a TV draft analyst. He's very good at that. The other part of it, it is a little kind of crazy to say, hey, you think you really know better than the people that do it? I used to ask Floyd when we worked together, I'm like, do you care what Mel says? He's like, no. And I was like, when you were GM, did you care? No. And I was like, so do you not like Mel? He's like, no, I love Mel. We work together at ESPN, love him. I was like, but you don't care what he says? Nope. Okay. And then I noticed when we would do the shows, like if Mel Kiper has a mock draft and I'm like, Mel Kiper Jr.'s mock draft is out, people seem to care more. Mel is good at what he does. You have to give it to Mel, regardless of what you think of his draft analysis, that he is, in my opinion, the John Madden of NFL draft evaluators. He wasn't the first, just like Madden wasn't the first, but he is the best in terms of being on TV and the recognition and everything else, just like Madden was the best. One texter texts in, DK in Mount Juliet says, Lord Brinker mentions his time in Green Bay to anyone who will listen, but they can't wait to start Cam Ward with a question mark. Well, you have to remember, they have not said that they're going to start Cam Ward. We don't know what the plan is other than there's going to be competition. Now, I have a hard time believing that the Titans unretired Warren Moon's jersey to have Brandon Allen start at quarterback. Now, if I was the general manager, you would think that Brandon Allen's going to start at quarterback for this team, or think that there's a very good chance that that's possible. But I also would have never unretired Warren Moon's jersey. So there's that. One texter says, after Vince Young took a hit along the sidelines against the Giants and popped right back up, starting the massive comeback, I absolutely thought this guy is it. We all miss. Dude, it's so funny listening to Titan fans that have been Titan fans as long as I have when it comes to Cam Ward that are just like, Cam's going to be a star, Jared. No questions asked. He's Mahomes 2.0. He's H-E-I-R McNair. Give him Warren Moon's number. And I'm like, do you not remember Vince Young? Like, do you not remember how great? And it didn't work. Mariota had the best debut in the history of the NFL. And it didn't work. Like, can we not have just a little bit of pessimism here? Like, can we not be at least a little bit cautious? Nope. He's McNair. Okay. Dude, I thought Vince Young was the freaking truth. I thought it was so simple. Oh, McNair, he's great. Now McNair's hurt and he's done. Okay, Vince Young, he's the man. Boy, Vince certainly had that way. One texter says, Chad says, the Titans didn't do anything for Mariota, Locker, or Vince Young either. What makes you think that they'll do anything for Cam? Well, I'm sitting here begging them to go get a tight end, and everybody in the world seems to think it's going to be Chigakonkwo, and I think Chigakonkwo stinks. So I do say, hey, what are the Titans doing for Cam? They did get him a left tackle. Granted, it wasn't a good left tackle, but they got him an average left tackle, which is better than what they had been doing, which is lying to themselves and pretending that a right tackle was a good left tackle when he was really not a good left tackle, and he'll probably be a good right tackle. Other than that, I don't know. They drafted him some speed, which I do like in the 4th round. I'm going to get into the Restrepo thing with Chris Sanders here in a little bit, but you guys care a lot more about Restrepo than I do. I don't even think Restrepo will make the team. Jeff says, considering the trade deal and the picks the Titans passed on to select Ward, how much do you think Titans management are hoping that Jackson Dart does not find much success behind center? I don't think anybody cares about the picks as far as what the Giants do. I think it comes down to what Cam does. If Cam's a bust, we'll look back on it and really what next year's quarterback class looks like. Because I went back and I researched kind of when teams move up for the number 1 pick, how often does that pick that they've moved up for become a granddaddy pick? And it does happen more than you would think. Like, for instance, after New Orleans moved up all those picks with Washington to get Ricky Williams, the next year Washington was picking number 2 because of New Orleans' pick. When San Diego moved up with Arizona only got the 8th pick in the 99 draft, which took them out of the quarterback equation. The RG3 trade netted St. Louis the number 2 overall pick in 2014. The Titans got the 5th overall pick in 2017. Cleveland parlayed the number 2 pick in 2016 to the number 4 pick in 2018, which could have gotten them Josh Allen. And then obviously we know that Carolina sent the eventual number 1 pick to Chicago as part of that deal. So I think it's what the quarterback class looks like and everything else. One texter said, you just said Will Levis will be better than Cam Ward in 3 years. No, I said, I wonder what Mel Kiper thinks. I am not a Levis fan. One texter says, Dylan from Antioch goes, I was at the 2009 game when Vince Young converted 4 fourth downs to beat Miami. Vince Young looked like the man. Vince Young, people forget Vince Young, but Vince Young, man, he was, Vince Young could have been special. He could have been. I will go to my grave thinking that. Chris Sanders joins us next. Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game. It's time for the 4th annual 615 Open Charity Golf Tournament. Cromwell Media, along with partners Fox 17, Outfront Media, and Social Indoor, are proud to announce we'll be back at the Hermitage Golf Course on Thursday, May 29th to make a difference while having a great time. You can join us, a few guest media members, athletes, musicians, and more as we raise money for Folds of Honor. Donations will go to provide life-changing scholarships to families of America's fallen or disabled military and first responders. Sign up to player sponsor at 615open.com. Chris Sanders joins us now on the program, former Titans receiver. So, yes, Chris, I want to start here. PK said this morning, the Titans turned down from the Giants 3-34, next year's 1, and next year's 2 in order to draft Cam Ward. Do you think if you were the general manager of the Titans, would you have made that trade and gotten all those picks, or would you still have gone with Cam Ward?
I mean, it all depends, and I'm gonna go with the Titans side. And I think the reason why the Titans pick Cam Ward because they feel like there's their guy. But if I was the general manager, knowing that the holes that I have and different places that I need to do better in, I probably would have took the trade. But at the end of the day, the Tennessee Titans love what Cam Ward is doing. So even though me and you were like going crazy when we were doing our draft and everything, I just think that for the Tennessee Titans, they definitely need a quarterback. I know it's a big price. I know that, we could do something, or the Tennessee Titans can do a lot with all those draft picks and build up the roster. But at the end of the day, this is what the Tennessee Titans thought was best for their team.
Chris, you played for the Houston Oilers, and then you eventually played for the Tennessee Titans. What do you make of Warren Moon unretiring the number? Do you think that adds pressure for Cam Ward? And then also, what do you think about people that just want to forget about Oiler history and forget about the uniforms and forget about, Earl Campbell and George Blanda and Chris Sanders and everybody else? What do you think of that?
No, I mean, it's a part of history. It's a part of tradition. There was a lot of people that came to the Oilers and the Tennessee Titans. It's basically the same team. But going back to the number that, Warren Moon gave Cam Ward, in my opinion, I know you hate it. I just think it's a great gesture to pass the torch to somebody new. I mean, we talk about we talk about Warren Moon, we talk about Earl Campbell, we talk about all those things. I think what giving him the number 1 and unretiring it is passing the torch to say, okay, now let's start a legacy of doing something great. Because if you look at the last couple of years, not even a couple of years, the last 4 and 5 years, the Tennessee Titans had nothing to put their head in. They had nothing to look forward to. Now you have a situation to where you get a quarterback, you get a situation, and put all that stuff to bed and start a new regime with Cam Ward by getting the number 1.
Is that true, though? Because last year, this time, fans thought Will Levis was going to be a franchise quarterback. You say they had nothing to look forward to, but I feel like they were looking forward to Will Levis this time last year, who they thought was a franchise quarterback.
I know. I mean, I hate to say this, but you're absolutely right. I even thought that he was going to do better than what he did last year. But here's what you have to do is you have to bury what you did in the past and focus on now. I know that sounds kind of cliche-ish, but you got your quarterback, you got a new GM, you got different things that you have in place. Now you have to start building. Now you got to start to developing players. Now you got to keep building up this roster to really get something going with this franchise.
Okay, we'll get to Xavier Restrepo in a second because I know you've got an opinion on that. But Chimray DK in the 4th round.
Yes.
Elick Iomanor in the 4th round. They both run, DK is 3-4-4. No, 4-3-4. And Iomanor is 4-4-4, although he does have some drop issues. What do you think of the two receivers and the speed that they got for Cam Ward?
I love the speed. I love DK. I can't pronounce his name, so excuse me. The only thing that he needs to work on, the only thing that he does is run over.
Talking about DK or Elick Iomanor?
No, DK.
Just say Elick. Okay,
Elick. DK. I can't pronounce the name, but I love the pick. I love his speed, but I went back and watched some more of his films. Is he runs a lot of over routes. He runs all the catches that he had was over routes. I want to see what he does at the line of scrimmage. I want to see when he gets pressured, getting pressed to the line of scrimmage. I want to see those things. I want to see him run the route tree. All I kept seeing him was running over routes, not contested catches. That's what I want to see. And then the other kid from Stanford, Elick, I love what he does. He's got great body control. I think he caught 63 passes last year. He can make the big catches. But the one thing that I want to see again is I want to see what he does at the line of scrimmage. I want to see, does he have a game plan at the line of scrimmage? I want to see what he does at the top of the routes. Anybody can run routes, when they don't have any pressure at the line of scrimmage. Those guys didn't really get pressure at the line of scrimmage, so I want to see what they do. But the kid that I absolutely love that he didn't get drafted is Xavier How do you pronounce his name?
Restrepo.
Restrepo. I love him, and I'm gonna tell you why I love him, because I know you don't like him. This is what they said. This is what your quarterback that the Tennessee Titans you drafted, this is what he said about him. Number one, he moves the chains. Number two, he's Mr. Reliable. Number three, he finds a way to get open. And number four, this is the best one at them all, is he's the best route runner in the draft. When you want a security guy, a guy that gives you a security blanket, a guy that you can depend on, why not bring somebody that you're familiar with? And I'm going to break it down. I know you're like, well, he runs a 4.8 or 4.7. Let me name some guys that won Super Bowls.
He ran a 4.85.
Okay, but check this out.
Trevor ran faster at the combine in 1985.
Absolutely, but let's go with Calico. Calico ran a 4.37, but he couldn't run routes. Let's talk about this. Let me name a couple of guys that ran slow that did get drafted. Number one, Danny Amendola didn't get drafted, ran a 4.58. Look at Wes Welker, 4.65, didn't get drafted. Julian Edelman ran a 4.52, 7th round. But here's two things that he had: they understand how to get open, and they were always reliable. So
right, but you're talking about guys that ran 4.5s and 4. This guy ran a 4.8.
But he understands how to get open. It's not always about running a 4.3 or 4.2. Calico ran a 4.3.
I agree. Usain Bolt cannot play wide receiver in the NFL. I agree with that. I'm not arguing that. But at the same time, you're telling me, hey, that Danny Amendola, he ran a 4.5. This guy ran a 4.8. But Sam Darnold is faster than this guy. Trevor ran faster than this guy.
There's guys that ran 4.3 that play 4.7. There's guys that run 4.8 that play 4.8. I'm watching this guy's.
The entire NFL, including the Titans.
Oh my gosh!
You can say it doesn't matter. The entire NFL says it matters because they did not draft him.
It does matter because there's a lot of fast guys that don't make it. There's a lot of guys that run 4.3 that don't make it. There's a lot of guys that run 4.2 that don't make it. Landry, the receiver from Cleveland Browns, Landry, he ran a 4.7. Good receiver, right or wrong. It's not always about speed. It's about understanding how to run routes.
I didn't say it's always about speed. I'm just saying that you need to be fast to play in the NFL.
Yeah, I'm not just listen. There's a lot of cats that run 4.3 that play 4.7. This guy is 4.8. But I looked at his film again because I wanted to be crystal clear than when I say this on the radio. So I went back and watched some of his film. This guy I know he ran 4.8, but he plays faster than that. He gets out of his cut fast. It's not just about running a straight 4.3, but can you run 4.8 getting out of your cuts? Because there's a lot of guys like Calico, and I say this respectfully. He ran 4.3, but he gets out of his cuts like 4.9. It's more than just having speed.
Here's the question I have, though, when it comes to Restrepo, who I think we can agree, even if he ran a 4.85, so that's his time, but let's say he's plays fast, whatever. Who's he making the team over? Is he making the team over Ridley? No. Is he making the team over Lockett?
No.
Is he making the team over DK?
They're going to make the team, but I guarantee he's playing in that starting role. Not starting role, but he'll be in that rotation.
Okay. So is he going to make the team over DK or Io Man or who they used 4th round draft picks on?
He may not make he's going to make the team. But he's going to be in that starting rotation.
How many receivers are they going to carry for him to make the team?
But here's the deal: those guys are going to make the team. Those guys are. You got Calvin Ridley, you got Alec, you got DK. Those guys are going to be on the team. Absolutely. But all these other, you got Van Jefferson, you got Tyler Lockett. This guy's going to. I'm telling you, this guy's going to be on the team because you know why? When we get into practice. When Cam Ward is going through 7-on-7, when he's going through team and things start to break down, who's he going to go to? Who's going to keep showing up a film? Who's going to
run around? Should an undrafted free agent who can't run even be on the field with Cam Ward in 7-on-7?
Jared, it's not always about speed.
But how many first team reps are you giving this undrafted free agent? Because again, Cam Ward. The undrafted guy, Will Levis, was not throwing to undrafted free agents in training camp last year when he was the starting quarterback.
Jared, you say if you ran a 4.1, if you don't know how to get off the press, if you don't know how to set guys up, if you don't know how to create separation, it absolutely means crap. You're just wasted potential. This guy creates separation when it's 3rd and 5, when it's 3rd and 10. He might not be on the perimeter, But I guarantee you, if he's in a slot when he's running seams and he's running those digs and he's running those deep crossers, he understands how to get open. It's how you use him.
Chris, can I say
Jared?
on the radio that you made millions of dollars playing football in the NFL?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know why you made millions of dollars playing football in the NFL?
Yeah.
What was your 40 time?
It was 4 in my individual work. I ran 4.22. That's individual work.
4.22. Now,
4.22.
you absolutely could get off the press. You caught touchdowns. Yep. You ran by guys. You had all rookie team, everything.
Absolutely.
Do you think you could have done that at 4.85?
Yes, and I'm gonna tell you why. Because
you think if you ran a 4.85, you
100%.
could have had the same career you had?
100%, and I'm gonna tell you why. Because when I came into the league, everybody knew I was fast. Everybody knew I could run. Everybody knew I can jump. But once I got with Les Steckel, and he taught me the craft of running routes, the craft of getting off the line of scrimmage, the craft of lying with my eyes, the craft of getting in and out of my cuts, the craft of coming back to the ball. My whole game went from okay to skyrocketing, because now I wasn't just known as a fast guy. I just wasn't known as a guy who took the top off the defense. I just wasn't known as a guy that could run a straight line. Now I was known as a guy who can run routes, burst off his cut, lie with his eyes, get off the press, get the guy off the spot. So now I incorporated all that. That's when my game took off my rookie season, because I just wasn't a fast guy.
But you couldn't have done that at 4.8.
Yes, I could have.
You could not have made, if you were as fast as Trevor Maddich, you could not have made the all-rookie team.
Yes, absolutely.
You think you could have made the all-rookie team running as fast as Trevor Maddich?
Trevor Maddich is a 5'7". I love
5'7".
Yes.
Trevor said that he ran a faster time than the 4.85 that Restrepo ran. He said he ran a faster time when he was coming out in 1985.
But okay, can I say something? Did you hear what the quarterback he just played with that you just drafted? Did you hear what he just said?
Is he the general manager?
He didn't say
is
nothing
he a scout?
about it. No, hold on. Did he say nothing about, but this is the guy that you drafted in the first round, right? But here's what he said. He said, this is the
you got to play
thing
quarterback, not to be GM.
He said, squash that 40. He said, squash the 40 time. But you see what he brings to the table? He understands how to get open. He creates separation. You can get, okay, what if DK from Florida, I can't pronounce his name. What if he can't get off the press? What if he's not physical enough to get the guy off the spot? But then you got a guy who does that. Who do you play? You play the guy who knows how to do that.
Sure.
Look at Derek Mason. Derek Mason is a prime candidate of understanding.
Derek was a 4.55.
But even though he wasn't a speed demon, Derek knew what to do at the line of scrimmage. Derek knew how to get the guy.
You're just dismissing the difference between 4.55 and 4.85. Your tight ends run faster than that.
Let me ask you a question. I'm not just talking about me working in the NBA. I coach kids that are not fast. But every time I go against the opposing team, they're like, man, how do your kids get open when my kid is going to Georgia? My kid is going to Alabama. But how does your kid get open? And I tell them, I said, it's not about your kid running the 4.3 and my kid running the 5.7. It's understanding how to create separation. I have a game plan at the line of scrimmage. I have a game plan in the second phase of my route. And then at the top of the route, I know how to burst to where even though he's running the 4.3, he can't get out of his cut. Those are the things. It's more than just running a 4.3 and being fast.
I'm not saying that running a 4.3 is the only thing that makes you good. I am saying that speed is a requisite of being a good receiver.
Absolutely.
And he doesn't have it. Chris Sanders, as always on our program, again, known for running 4.26 at the combine, and now Chris is saying it doesn't matter. 615-737-1025. Okay, I do have a Restrepo take on this I want to get to. We'll do that next. Stillman and Company, 1025 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, and delivered and presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. So Chris Sanders and I got into it over Xavier Restrepo. I just want to clear one thing up off the very front. Just because you can run does not mean that you will be a good receiver, because there are plenty of people that can run. Tyquan Thornton for the New England Patriots ran like a 4.26 40. So just because you can run does not mean that you will be a good receiver. But in order to be a good receiver in the NFL, you have to be able to run. And Xavier Restrepo ran a 4.85 40 at his pro day. He did not run at the combine. That was a choice that he made. So if he had run, because Titan fans, and I do not understand this, but Titan fans are saying every time I bring up the Restrepo 40 time, which is clearly why he didn't get drafted, Titan fans are like, well, he injured a hamstring, Jared. That's convenient. Oh, yeah, that terrible 40 time that guy ran, that jaw-droppingly bad 40 time. Yeah, it doesn't count. And that may work for you in fantasy land, but 32 NFL teams, including your team, passed on Xavier Restrepo simply because he ran a 4.85. Again, Trevor Maddich ran a faster time when he was a center coming out in 1985. Gunnar Helm, who ran a below average 40 time at the combine, ran faster than Xavier Restrepo. Secondly, everybody keeps telling me these examples of other wide receivers. Jarvis Landry ran a 4.77. Anquan Bolden ran a 4.71. Hey, David Reed, I have a question for you. What is faster, 4.71 or 4.85?
I was told there'll be no math in this job.
4.71 or 4.85?
4.71.
Oh, so these guys are telling me, well, he ran a 4.71. Yeah, and Xavier Restrepo didn't even run that. And what Chris Sanders said about Cam Ward and 7-on-7 is exactly why I would not take Xavier Restrepo on this team as an undrafted free agent. Because as of right now, Xavier Restrepo should not be on the field when Cam Ward is in 7-on-7. Now, at rookie mini camp, knock yourself out. But once we start getting to football, like I need Cam Ward, who's going to be the starting quarterback of this team. I need Cam Ward to be throwing with the guys that belong in the NFL, as in Calvin Ridley, Tyler Lockett, Van Jefferson, Shamir DK, Elick Iomanner. And I'm going to tell you right now, Bryce Oliver, to me, is significantly higher on the depth chart than Xavier Restrepo. Why? Because Bryce Oliver last year went to training camp and played very, very well. Bryce Oliver played very well in the reps he was given in the preseason, scored 2 touchdowns in that Saints game, made it to the active roster last year, played and actually played well in the NFL last year, and runs a 4.55. Xavier Restrepo should be battling with the guys at the bottom of the roster for whatever practice opportunities he can get with Tim Boyle. But here's Chris Sanders talking about, you watch, in 7-on-7, Cam Ward's going to be throwing to his guy. That's why I wouldn't have brought him in. That's why if the Las Vegas Raiders with Geno Smith at quarterback had decided to bring Xavier Restrepo in, to where Xavier Restrepo runs around for the first month with his name taped on his helmet, and every time he goes to make a catch, the Vegas media pulls out and says, who is 83? Restrepo. Oh, okay. That would have been fine. Would have been fine with the Rams, would have been fine with the Steelers, would have been fine with the Seahawks, would have been fine with the Ravens, would have been fine anybody else. But here, Titan fans are defending this man. He is an undrafted free agent. Even your team made 9 picks. And your team was like, yeah, no, not him. And now I'm being told that, oh, no, Jared, you don't understand. His relationship with Cam Ward, that's going to be great. You're going to see. You don't get it. This is an undrafted free agent we're talking about here. It's one thing for you guys to pull your pants down when you're talking about the quarterback who you drafted in the first round. Again, I would be more pessimistic about it, but I get it. But now we're going to die on the hill for an undrafted free agent? Again, somebody explain to me where this undrafted free agent is going to make this team. He's not making the team over Ridley or Lockett or Jefferson. He's not making the team over the two guys they drafted in the 4th round. That's 5 receivers. He's not going to make the team over Treylon Burks, who, again, is a bum, but he's not going to make it over Burks, and he's not going to make the team right now over Bryce Oliver. And you guys just dismissed that 40 time like, doesn't matter. It mattered to the other 32 teams. It mattered to your team. Your team didn't even draft him. So give me a break with this belief that, oh, well, again, this is exactly why I wouldn't have signed him. Too many people are too excited about the college fuzzies and think that that's automatically going to translate in the NFL. I've seen people that have said, well, so you don't think the Bengals should have brought in Jamar Chase? Jamar Chase was the 5th pick in the draft. This guy's an undrafted free agent. What are you talking about? They're not even on the same zip code, stratosphere, planet, solar system. But again, Chris Sanders thinks that Xavier Restrepo should already be running with the ones in training camp, apparently. 615-737-1025. We'll get to your phones on this. 615-737-1025. Stillman and Company, 1025, 106 through the game.
The thing that worries me about that is that he might try to get his buddy on the team by throwing him a lot of passes and giving him a lot of chances to catch the ball, when he really should be throwing the ball all around and spreading the ball around and giving a lot of guys chances. And I worry about that a little bit, because then you've got guys like Io Manor and DK and guys like that, some of the young guys that aren't having a chance to develop as much as you would think. And then you've got some of the veterans that aren't developing as much chemistry as they might be able to with Cam Ward, because Cam is always looking for Restrepo to do his best to get him on the team. I mean, that sort of happened with Chicago Bears and Jim McMahon with a couple of BYU guys. I mean, I played at BYU with Jim McMahon and Dan Plater. Dan Plater was a great receiver for us in college. Kind of not a great NFL receiver, but McMahon made sure he was on that team. And he contributed for a few years. He played for the Bears a little bit and all that, but I worry that Ward might skew the development of the entire passing game by trying to get the ball to his guy. Now, I don't know that he's going to do that, but that's my biggest worry.
Okay, that was Trevor yesterday talking about Xavier Restrepo, saying my big worry is Cam Ward's going to try to get Xavier Restrepo on this team. That Cam Ward is going to go out of his way to, again, in drills, let me make sure I get the ball to Xavier Restrepo. Again, an undrafted free agent, when I think Cam Ward needs to be spending time with guys that belong in the NFL. Now, many people will say that they don't care about the 40 time. That we don't care about the 40 time. It doesn't matter. You do realize it matters to the entire NFL, including your team. Because Xavier Restrepo, again, his stats and what he did at Miami absolutely indicates that he should have been a draft pick. But nobody drafted him because he ran a terrible 40 time. Well, Jared, he had a bad hamstring that day. Well, that was his pro day. He chose not to run at the combine. So that's his fault, that he doesn't have the 4.5 that he can point back to, and he can say, hey, I ran this 4.5 at the combine, so you know that it was just my tweaked hammy. Secondly, you may buy that excuse. The league does not, because, again, they didn't draft him. And then finally, I pulled up Dane Brugler's total database of prospects, and I had it go by 40 times. So anybody that's got a 40 time on record, and there are a bunch of guys at receiver, because I guess he's got them ranked all the way to Kingdom Come. I mean, he's got, when it comes to the slowest 40 time, his 425th ranked receiver, Kadarius Thompson at Georgia State, ran a 5.14. So when you go through the entire list, he's got round grades on all these guys. Every single person who runs between a 5.14 and, let's see when we get to that 7th round pick by the Rams, the Munford, every single person between that and, hold on, I want to make sure I get this right, Pat Bryant at Illinois, are listed as a potential undrafted free agent, ran between a 6.61. So there are all these guys that ran 6.45, 4.65, 4.70, 4.71, 4.74. All of them are undrafted free agent grades except for Restrepo, who had a grade of a 6th or 7th round pick. So you guys keep acting like it doesn't matter. And here's what bothers me. In any other camp, Xavier Restrepo would be viewed as the 84th person on the team, which is where he needs to start. He needs to start on the 4th team and make plays on the 4th team, and then get bumped up to the 3rd team. And then after the 3rd team, he needs to make some plays to get bumped up to the 2nd team. Then maybe, just maybe, if he keeps playing well, the cream rises to the top, then he can find his way with the starters. But instead, I've already got Chris Sanders saying, oh, he needs to be out there on 7-on-7 with the starters. Well, I need the guys they drafted to play in the NFL who they think are much better players, Chimray, DK, and Elic Iomanor, and I need those guys on the field with the young quarterback. I need Van Jefferson, who they expect to be on the roster, on the field. I need Tyler Lockett on the field. I don't need to be worried about the undrafted free agents. In fact, I don't even know a single other UDFA the Titans signed. And that's why I would not have signed him here. And I've never seen Titan fans just defend an undrafted free agent the way they're defending Restrepo. It's unbelievable. And I got to say this. I love Chris with all my heart. But the fact that Chris, who was drafted and had a legitimate and a good NFL career because he was fast, to say, oh, I would have made the all-rookie team if I ran slower than Frank Wycheck, is ridiculous. And I love him, but it's ridiculous. 615-737-1025. Chris says two things. Ward is smarter than that, and Restrepo was better than that. He was an All-American, Jared. Yeah, Hendon Hooker threw for like 8,000 yards at UT. He has to battle with Kyle Allen to be Jared Goff's backup. Wasn't he an All-American? I mean, this is the thing about the NFL, is that while it does help if you do things at higher competition and bigger schools and things, it doesn't just mean because you're a good college player that you're going to be a good pro player. Because in college, the guys just aren't as good. It's like when I watch the Cam Ward tape, and Cam Ward is just so cool and calm and can wiggle away from edge rushers and then throw off his back foot and rifle 140 yards down the field, and that looks great. But here's the problem. In the NFL, that's Max Crosby. And when you wiggle away from that edge rusher in college, that Virginia Tech edge rusher, that's not Max Crosby. That's the problem in the NFL. Like, that's an elite athlete every time. There's a lot of guys that were good college players. Tennessee has a good running back every year in that Josh Heupel system. Should we just get rid of Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears and hand the ball to Jamari Spall? One texter says, I'm confused. Did the Titans anoint him wide receiver 1? Or have they even said where he's going to be? Just chill out, let him play, and see what happens, and quit crying over something that hasn't happened yet. Why are you acting like Xavier Restrepo was anointed over Ridley for some reason? Your 40 theory is true for the draft, but he's a UDFA, which is used for Flyers. He set records at Miami, not Scarbini State, and they just want to see if he can play. And if they can just let him on the team because of Cam Ward, they have bigger issues, and I think you just need to chill out. So, again, what did Trevor say? The cut we just played. He's worried Cam's going to try to get him on the team. And here's, again, why I don't like the idea of drafting a guy number 1 overall and just adding to the pressure that comes with the color of being picked number 1, like giving him Warren Moon's number or, allowing him to push you to sign an undrafted free agent. Is now he thinks he's the general manager. When I hear Chris Sanders say that, well, did you hear Cam Ward said he's the best route runner in the draft? I would ask you this question. How many route runners in the draft has Cam Ward studied? Does Cam Ward know who the best route runner in the draft is? Or do the scouts that scout all the receivers know who the best route runner in the draft is? Again, I'm about to rip on Belichick here in a second. But when it comes to Bill, one thing that Bill used to always say when it came to the players was, you guys don't know you guys don't do this. You guys don't evaluate talent. You don't know who the best defensive lineman in the league is. You don't know what you're looking for in a 3 technique. And I think there's some truth to that. One texter said, he can make his way. The only reason he's here is because of Cam, but he can overcome his speed issues at Miami, and he can do it here. It doesn't mean that he will do it, but it means he can do it. So if you can't run, you can't play. That's just how the NFL works. Do you remember when the Titans brought in Adrian Peterson? And Adrian Peterson was an old pop, and he couldn't run anymore. Just could not run. And Deontay Foreman was a better back than him. In the NFL, if you can't run, you can't play. Unless you're a kicker. Or unless you're a guard. Xavier Restrepo can't run. One texter says, Randy goes, when your son is in the 4th grade and he's taking a math test and he gets finished before all the kids making the test the fastest, but he misses 6 out of 10 answers. You're not happy about that, but he says, Dad, I finished first. Or is it better unless he uses the ability to work quick, but only gets one answer wrong, which result is going to keep little Jared from being grounded? Okay, well, I'm not sure. I don't really understand that. Here's the deal. In the NFL, like the test that you're taking, the right answers, that's the 40-yard dash. And Xavier Restrepo failed. Like, I was listening to Bill Polian yesterday, and he was yelling and screaming about Mel Kiper and all the Shador stuff that went on in the draft. It was actually pretty funny. And he said in Indianapolis they had a computer that if they tried to draft a player who didn't meet a certain criteria for that round, the computer would be, So it'd be like, oh, hey, let's see. Let's take this guy in the third round. But he runs a 4.53, which would not be, the computer would say, don't take him. And the entire team, the entire league subscribed to that. Like Philip says, Jared, how do you explain his 16.3 APC and his long each year is equivalent to Dykes? Again, or DK's. DK ran a 4.3 440. A 4.3 440. One text said, how can you argue with a dude who played football? Again, the fact that Chris Sanders took the best attribute of his game and said he could still make the all-rookie team without it was kind of shocking to me. I'm not going to lie. I was kind of stunned by it. The fact that the number one thing about his game was he was fast. He was the deep threat receiver. He was a yards per catch guy. He was throw the long ball and he's going to catch it for a touchdown. And he's like, oh, I could have done that if I was as fast as Aaron Kenny. Is wild to me. One texter says, when does an undrafted free agent get on the field with the other starters unless they've earned the spot? The coaches are not going to put an undrafted free agent out there with Calvin Ridley and the other starters if he hasn't earned his way onto the field. I would agree, but again, I could see the Titans say, oh, no, let's get Restrepo some reps out here. Like right now, if I have to pick Restrepo or Bryce Oliver, I'm taking Bryce Oliver. And it's not even something I'm thinking about twice. So I don't know how he makes the team. He's not going to return kicks. You're going to put him at gunner running a 4.85? I don't even know how he makes the team. Unless, again, they put him on there because he's Cam's buddy, which I don't like. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number. That's 615-737-1025. Coming up next. So Bill Belichick, holy crap. I have a theory about what's gotten into Bill. And I have a theory that nobody else has put out there. I'm going to put it out there. We'll do that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game. Let's talk Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. I love Hiller. They take great care of my home, and they can do the exact same for you. Nobody wants to deal with a plumbing, HVAC, or electrical emergency because most of the time you don't know what it will cost, if it will get fixed correctly, or if someone is just trying to sell you something that you don't need. When you call Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical, their experts are going to solve your problems quickly, and I know that because I use Hiller at my home. The price you're told is the price you'll actually pay with no hidden fees and no surprises on your bill. So be like me and book online right now at happyhiller.com. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Proud supporters of the Preds, the Vols, and Vandy. Hiller. Call the Happy Face Truck today.
The other change for Belichick is 24-year-old Jordan Hudson, his creative muse, as he writes in his book.
Make sure that that's the...
Jordan was a constant presence during our interview.
You have Jordan right over there. Everybody in the world seems to be following this relationship. They've got an opinion about your private life. It's got nothing to do with them, but they're invested in it. How do you deal with that?
Never been too worried about what everybody else thinks. Just try to do what I feel like is best for me and what's right.
How did you guys meet?
Not talking about this.
No?
No.
It's a topic neither one of them is comfortable commenting on, though Hudson has recently posted about it on Instagram.
You joined InstaFace, as you put it. I love that. There's some great pictures of you and Jordan where you're a fisherman and she's a mermaid. It's charming. It's a different side of you. What's the reaction been like?
What's it been like?
To have these different sort of photos. There's another one where you're doing, I know you're not into meditation or yoga or Pilates. You're balancing Jordan on your feet. And she's doing kind of the Titanic pose.
Yeah, so I'm on some of those social media platforms, but I honestly don't follow them.
There you go. That was Bill on CBS Sunday Morning. And it's a Wednesday, and this is still a topic. The disastrous 8-minute Bill Belichick interview where he tried to pump his new book, and he wore that horrendous Navy sweatshirt. And I get it. You know, it's kind of like the Bill brand with the cut in there, you know, the Slavish look, all about old football and everything else. But again, what everybody takes away from it's the 24-year-old girlfriend who is basically, I mean, I hate to say it, but she's the one who's leading Bill around by the schmeckle. But I've a lot of people have commented on this. Everybody knows the whole thing is so embarrassing that the guy who many considered to be the greatest coach of all time, maybe still do consider the greatest coach of all time. I don't consider Bill the greatest coach of all time. And 5-6 years ago, I did. I do not consider him the greatest coach of all time anymore, because Brady went to Tampa Bay and won a Super Bowl, and without Brady, Bill sucked. And now this, it's so embarrassing. Now, I don't care about the 73-year-old dating the 24-year-old. It's weird when you think about Bill and like the loose old man skin and her. I just, ugh. But here's the real story for me with Belichick. Because Belichick basically put out a statement today saying CBS did him dirty. That we had a 35-minute talk, and the 8 minutes did not, here's, in fact, from the release from North Carolina. The final 8-minute segment does not reflect the productive 35-minute conversation we had, which covered a wide range of topics related to my career. Instead, it presents a selectively edited clips and stills from just a few minutes of the interview to suggest a false narrative that Jordan was attempting to control the conversation, which is simply not true. Here's what I'm going to say. Tom Brady going to Tampa Bay and winning the Super Bowl, and Belichick's subsequent failure with Mac Jones has broken his brain. Bill has absolutely lost it. I think we all see it if our parents are a little bit older. I think we all see it that they're not as sharp as they used to be. And I think we all know deep down inside there's going to come a point in time where we have to maybe make some choices for our parents. They're getting to the end zone, and it's time to start calling their plays. I remember when it happened to my grandfather, and I remember the decisions my parents had to make, and I remember how much my grandfather hated it. But it is sometimes reality. Now, look, there's still some dudes out there that are like 97 years old and sharp as a tack. Bill ain't one of them. I don't know. I'm not a psychologist, so I can't tell you what kind of stress this is, what kind of trauma this is, what kind of identity crisis this is with Bill. But I think this all stems back to Tom Brady leaving New England, going to Tampa Bay, and winning the Super Bowl. Because at that point, Bill Belichick, who failed as a head coach in Cleveland, won 5 games that first year with Bledsoe, and was 0-2 until Brady took over and won the Super Bowl. Bill kind of always believed, and I think there were a lot of people, myself included, that believed that, hey, Bill Belichick is the smartest. Bill Belichick is the greatest. Bill Belichick discovers everything. Bill Belichick's a genius. Bill Belichick knows. Bill Belichick this, Bill Belichick that. And then when Tom Brady goes to Tampa and wins the Super Bowl, that kind of puts an end to the who's more important, Brady or Belichick argument. And then when Belichick goes and drafts Mac Jones to be the next Tom Brady, and Josh McDaniels leaves to go be the head coach with the Raiders, Belichick did one of the dumbest things I have ever seen an adult football coach do. When he made Matt Patricia a defensive coordinator, the offensive coordinator. And I did not understand it at the time. And I thought, Bill, what the hell are you doing? And everyone's like, who are you to criticize Bill Belichick? And I remember when everyone was trying to figure out who's calling the plays. And the media would ask Bill, and Bill would get up there and go, yeah, don't worry about it. It's like, Bill, not worry who's calling the plays for a second-year quarterback? I think it kind of matters. And so Bill, again, had his brain broken by Tom going to Tampa, because now Bill doesn't just have to win, but Bill has to win, and he has to do it the Bill way so he can show my way works. The problem is it didn't work. The Patriots were horrible. They were picking 3rd in the draft. Belichick got fired. And again, I think Bill was reeling a little bit, but I think Bill still had his identity in check, probably blamed Robert Kraft for some of it, probably blamed Mac Jones for some of it, but I'll go get an NFL job and I'll go show him. And then the NFL said, no, thank you, we're not interested. And I think that rejection hit Bill pretty hard, because this is a guy who for 25 years was considered the smartest guy on the planet when it came to football. And now 32 teams are saying, yeah, no. And I remember last year listening to Belichick on McAfee. I found it very insightful. And I thought maybe Bill will get another shot. I thought all these jobs were coming open, and I'm seeing all these stupid coaches get hired. And I'm thinking, Bill's going to get a crack at this, because somebody is going to be disorganized. Somebody is going to have a quarterback, and it's just going to need a kick in the ass, and they're going to need a stern ball coach that is detail-oriented to come in there, and Bill's going to do it. And then Bill took the job at North Carolina, and I thought, what? Why? Well, maybe he took the job at North Carolina because nobody wanted him in the NFL. And I think that rejection, the rejection of Tom, the rejection of the entire NFL, the rejection of the life that he knew, his identity was baked in as the smartest, most arrogant football guy on the planet. And Tom Brady's divorce and subsequent venture to Tampa Bay and his triumph with the Super Bowl ruined that identity for Belichick. And that's why I think Belichick's with a 24-year-old, because he's insecure. He's insecure about his football status. And then I think that leads you to go do that. So I've got 2 thoughts on this. The first is, I believe Tom Brady winning a title in Tampa has absolutely broken Bill Belichick. The guy, I wonder if he even has a purpose for living anymore. Because again, for 30 years, 25 years, he was viewed as the guru. Everywhere he went, everybody kissed his ass. Now, you're just the guy that was lucky enough to draft Tom Brady at 199. And secondly, if Bill has any shot at getting back into the National Football League, and I think that ship has sailed, but if there was any hope of getting back into it, the girlfriend's got to go. There's no way for Bill to get back into the league if the girlfriend doesn't go. Period. Nobody's dealing with that. She's 24. Like, she's sitting there, she's running quote unquote Belichick Enterprises or whatever. Dude, Bill's been a head coach longer than she's been alive. So it's embarrassing. I mean, it's shameful. It is. I feel bad for Bill. 615-737-1025. We'll go to your phones. I guess a lot of you want to weigh in on this, so we'll continue. Stillman and Company, 1025-1063, The Game.
Give me a talk radio topic for 1 second, Mike. Will you indulge me?
What's that?
Okay, so We talk a lot about coaching trees and Belichick's coaching tree, and Belichick's coaching tree has fallen on its face. No one's, Mangini, McDaniels, Patricia, Charlie Weiss, on down the line, Joe Judge, everyone's failing. And then people who want to defend Belichick's coaching tree would say, well, what about Vrabel? And I would always say, I don't know if I'd put Mike Vrabel and Bill Belichick's coaching tree.
When you see me coach or you see me interact, do you feel like I'm from that lineage?
No.
Me neither.
So you don't consider yourself part of Belichick's coaching tree?
I never worked for Bill Belichick as a coach. There was a lot of things that I learned from him as a player that I've used. But just like with Urban Meyer or just like with anybody else that I've worked for, I've tried to take those things but do it in my own personality, my own style.
That was Vrabel at the owners' meeting saying, I'm not Bill, but we've all lived the Vrabel experience, and there are a lot of similarities to Bill. Arrogance, dedication, tough work. He grinds your ass no matter who you are. That's what Vrabel does, which, again, that was the hallmark of the Belichick way for years and years and years and years. And if this team had had Tom Brady as the quarterback, they probably would have won multiple Super Bowls with Vrabel as the coach. It kind of hit me this weekend. Why I finally think that, you know what? Because I've said the best things about Vrabel are he's like Belichick in the best ways, the best qualities. Vrabel is smart. Vrabel works hard. Vrabel holds people accountable. Vrabel is dedicated. Vrabel gets the most out of you. But he's also like Bill in the worst ways. He's arrogant. I think arrogance kind of summarizes everything, right? He believes too much in his coaches, too much in his guys, his way. Vrabel knows. Well, I just realized with this Belichick story, what happened was Robert Kraft saw Belichick had lost his fastball and said, well, look, let me go get Bill 2.0. And that is Vrabel. Now we'll see if they can make Drake May Brady 2.0, because if he can't, they're never going to win that much. And again, I know that Charlie Weiss, very good offensive coach. Belichick in his prime, great coach. But they got lucky to a certain extent with Brady. Let's see if Vrabel gets as lucky when it comes to Drake May. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number. Jim from Kingston Springs says, Bill Belichick was never close to being the best coach. Look at his coaching record before and after Brady. So here's the thing. Belichick is very much close to being the greatest coach of all time because he's about to pass Don Shula if he would just stick in the NFL and not piss everybody off. If the Falcons were convinced that he wasn't going to run over Terry Fontenot, who is a terrible general manager, but if the Falcons weren't convinced of that, Bill would have gone there, and there's a chance Bill's probably going to pass Don Shula. That is not going to happen. But when you're number 2 behind Don Shula and you have more Super Bowls than Don Shula, you are very much up there in the discussion for greatest coach of all time. If they were my rankings, I would rank Belichick 3rd. I would go Bill Walsh 1, Shula 2, Belichick 3, Lombardi 4. And I just don't know enough about Lombardi. And it was just such a different game to say, Bill or Lombardi or whatever. Andy Reid's absolutely up there. I'm a huge fan of Parcells. I'm not sure Parcells is up in that group. Landry, Knoll, again, before my time. But I think Bill Walsh is the best coach in the history of the NFL. And I used to think it was Belichick. One texter says Belichick was exposed when Brady left. It was all Brady, not Belichick, and that was exposed when Brady left. I agree. It was funny because they put me on the midday show today, and Adam Vingan was like, Jared, you love the Patriot way. And I said, no. I love the Patriot way. I used to think the Patriot way existed. I used to think the Patriots were smarter than you. I used to think that the Patriots worked harder than you. I used to think that the Patriots had more answers than you. I'll never forget Floyd told me that Belichick made these guys study so hard that when you showed up for a meeting on Wednesday, you better have all the answers. Bill would quiz these players, and they would say, okay, we're playing the Steelers. Who's the offensive coordinator? Arthur Smith. Where'd he go to school? Kick him out of the meeting. You need to know all that info. And then it just made them smarter. And Vince Wilfork talked about in the Super Bowl, because Belichick had drilled into them offensive calls, they knew what Russell Wilson was saying at the line of scrimmage, thinking that a defensive lineman wouldn't have known. And so I used to think, man, the Patriots, they're just so much smarter than you. They're just so much better than you. They're just so much more well-equipped than you. Their strategy is so much better than yours. Nope, they had Tom Brady. Because Bruce Arians could not have been more of a laissez-faire, everybody do whatever the hell you want, substitute teacher type head coach. And they won the Super Bowl there. So you're right. It was all Brady. One texter says, do you think Bill ever wears old Patriots Super Bowl gear? I don't know. Brady, Bill's got a real stick up his tush for Robert Kraft. I'll tell you that. That was beyond apparent in that CBS interview. And here's the other thing that's kind of crazy. With all of the Belichick stuff and it's almost like Bill has no idea that this is such a mockery of his entire life's work. Again, I have no problem with you and a 24-year-old. That's your business. But, like, let's just say his image was better when he was dating the blonde 60-year-old woman. One text says, date a 24-year-old if you want to, whatever. But why in the world is Bill bringing her to interviews and stuff? It's like a reputational malpractice. Agreed. It's like, what are you doing? Like, Bill, well, we have a professional relationship. Yeah, and how's she qualified for that professional relationship, Bill? And that's the other part I can't get over. Do you think Bill would have ever let Tom Brady? You think he ever would have let Tom Brady bring Giselle around the facility the way that he has Jordan Hudson handling all of his affairs? Of course not. But like I said, Bill's brain, the Bill that you knew, the Bill that used to win, the Belichick, that guy, he's gone because he's totally lost it. 615-737-1025. We now know the details of the Giants trade package to the Titans for Cam Ward that the Titans said no to. Holy crap, we'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game National Studios and presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. I was listening this morning to PK on with Robbie and Joe, and when I heard what Paul said, it wasn't totally shocking to me when he revealed the details of the Giants' offer to the Titans as far as the number one overall pick was concerned, because Adam Schefter had kind of explained that to us on the draft broadcast Thursday night. But now we have clarity. According to PK, the offer, and there wasn't much of a negotiation. So it's not as if, and Joe Shane, the general manager of the Giants, has gone on record and said that, hey, we tried to talk to the Titans, but it takes two to tango, and they weren't really interested in much of a dance partner there. According to Kaharski, the Giants' offer was 2 first-round picks, number 3 this year and next year's number 1, and 2 second-round picks, 34 this year and their second-rounder next year for Cam Ward. And the Titans said no. And from the way the Titans talk about it, I think we can all agree, it feels like the Giants could have called up and offered 5 first-round picks, and the Titans still would have said no, which, by the way, if you called the Buffalo Bills and you said 5 first-round picks for Josh Allen, they'd say no. If you called the Ravens and offered 5 first-round picks for Lamar Jackson, they'd say no. Remember, nobody was interested in giving Lamar Jackson a contract when he was on the exclusive franchise tag because, or maybe the non-exclusive franchise tag. I can't remember exactly which one he was on, but nobody was interested because they knew that if they were to sign Lamar to that contract, the Ravens would just match the contract. So there was no point in even going down that road. You're not going to get Mahomes for 5 number 1s. But the Titans value Cam Ward more than it seems like most people do, because I don't know about you, but I don't look at Cam Ward and see Josh Allen, especially right now. So let me get this out of the way, because I think you already know the answer to this. I would have done that deal in a heartbeat. And I think the Titans will regret if that was in fact the offer. A number 1 this year, a number 1 next year, a number 2 this year, and a number 2 next year. The Titans will regret not making that deal. And I really feel like you probably could have gotten pick 99 in the 3rd round out of the Giants as well. You probably could have walked out of that 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So again, let me get this out of the way. I would have done that. And I think there are a lot of you out there that would have done that as well. But here's what I can't get over. When this process began, when the Titans had the number 1 pick and they fired Rand Carthon and they hired Mike Borgonzi and we all started paying attention to the draft, we were all told these quarterbacks stink. And I thought in my head, if these quarterbacks really aren't as good as J.J. McCarthy, because Mel Kiper Jr. said that Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders, and we know how much Mel loves Shedeur Sanders, but Mel Kiper said J.J. McCarthy had a higher grade than these 2 guys did. At the Combine, ESPN talked to scouts and executives in the league who said J.J. McCarthy was ahead of Cam Ward. Jeff Howe at The Athletic at the Senior Bowl had a piece in which said these 2 guys, Ward and Sanders, probably go after Penix and Nix last year. So they're saying J.J. McCarthy was better. So I just kept that in my mind. And when this process started, I thought to myself, well, if I'm trying to negotiate with the Giants here, I really just want next year's first rounder. And at the end of the day, what I would ask for, and I said this, what I would ask for is I would ask for 3 34, their 1 next year, and probably 2 3s. And if they say yes to that, I drive the car to New York myself. But at the end of the day, because this quarterback class doesn't seem to be that good, everybody tells me next year's quarterback class seems to be much better, though I have concerns with guys like Drew Aller and Arch Manning and these other guys. But I would have done the deal, and I would have been okay if I had just gotten a number 1 next year or 34. If the Giants had told me 3-34, that's our best offer. We know Cam Ward's not that good. We're going to do it. I would have ultimately taken the deal. The fact that we now know that this wasn't some lowball offer because, well, this quarterback class isn't very good, so you're not going to get the same. This was I have to believe, a granddaddy offer. And they still said no. I have to accept the reality that, hey, the reason that those guys have those jobs and I don't is because they're the ones who are putting their careers on the line to get this right. And if they think he's Patrick Mahomes, or they think they can turn him into Patrick Mahomes, then you have to take him, no matter what the Giants offer. And I'm not arrogant enough to pretend that I was in the meetings with Cam Ward, or arrogant enough to believe that I can just watch Miami game tape and say, oh, this is what he's going to be, or this is not what he's going to be. Again, I think we're going to look at that Giants trade package, and this time next year we'll say, oh, if they had just gotten the trade package from the Giants, but we don't know that. I said the same thing when it comes to the Predators firing Andrew Burnett, which I don't know, especially after what Jonathan Marchessault said. I don't know how they could bring him back as the coach. But if Barry Trotz truly believes that he's the right coach and can get this thing on the right path, then go give it a shot. If you truly believe that Cam Ward is the next Mahomes, the way Louis Riddick does. Now, I don't think Louis Riddick has the credentials to be an NFL general manager, even though he interviews for the jobs. But if you think he is Patrick Mahomes, you have to take him. And forget about the package. You've got to take him, and you've got to make him into Mahomes. And everything the Titans have said, whether it's Borgonzi, Brinker, or Callahan, and everything they've done, like unretiring Warren Moon's number, tells me that they think that this guy is the next Mahomes, is the next Lamar, is the next Jaden Daniels, is the next whomever. That doesn't mean that I believe it. And I believe ultimately the Titans will regret this. But man, that's a haul to turn away. 2 1s, 2 2s. Oh. And I did the math today. Or I say I did the math. I did the research today. Since 1997, so since the Oiler franchise moved to Tennessee, here are the trades that involved a massive package move up in order to get to number 1, number 2, number 3 to take a quarterback or something similar. Now, I was a little surprised. The Michael Vick package wasn't that much in 2001 to move up and make that, and it was because Vick had told the Chargers he wasn't going to sign with them. San Diego and Arizona made a trade in 98 in which Arizona ended up with the number 8 overall pick in 99. New Orleans made the Ricky Williams trade in 99. Washington got number 2 overall in 2000. The Giants made the move with San Diego for Eli Manning, and San Diego got number 12 overall in 2005. Washington made the move with St. Louis in 2012 for RG3, and St. Louis ended up with the number 2 overall pick in 2014 because of it. The Rams made the move with the Titans in 2016, and Tennessee ended up with the 5th overall pick in 2017. Philly made the move with Cleveland in the same year. Cleveland got to number 12 in 17, which they turned around and traded to the Texans and got number 4 overall the next year. And then we all know that Carolina and Chicago 2 years ago led to Chicago getting the number 1 overall pick. So, again, there's no guarantee that that Giant pick would have been number 1 next year or number 3 next year. It could be number 12 next year, just like it was with San Diego in 2004. But man, a lot of these times those teams deal those future first rounders because they're desperate. They end up being pretty good. They end up being number 5, number 3, number 2, number 1. And I think that's what the Titans will regret. I also think the Titans will regret not having 34 and 35 because there's a lot of things you could have done on both Thursday and Friday if you had 34 and 35 in the kitty. But again, if they think he's Mahomes, then it was the right call. But if he's not Mahomes, we're going to remember that. 615-737-1025. We'll get to your phone, 615-737-1025. So I did think in my head, I did kind of massage my brain a little bit today, and I thought, okay, if I were the Titans, and you know what I would have done, you know I would have taken that trade to the Giants, what would my team look like compared to what their team looks like today? We'll do that next. 615-737-1025. Again, we now know the offer. 2 1s and 2 2s for Cam Ward, and the Titans said no. Stillman and Company, 1025, 106 the game.
Shefty, the feedback you were getting from people, did we gloss over Ward going #1 of the Titans?
Well, I ask you, has there ever been less conversation about a #1 overall pick than Cam Ward going to Tennessee. And there are teams that loved Cam Ward. And I think the Giants, Browns, Saints all would have had an interest in trading up to number 1 to Tennessee's slot. In fact, the Giants offered 2 first-round draft picks along with other picks to get up to number 1, with them being the most aggressive team to get up there. But again, people love Cam Ward. Some people have questions about Cam Ward. It feels like there was not as much conversation as there ordinarily is around a number 1 pick. And that's because the focus of the attention somehow wound up on Shedeur Sanders by and large. But Tennessee got a quarterback it believes it's going to be able to build its team around and grow with in the future.
That was Shefty, and you heard Shefty say, hey, the Giants would have loved to get Cam Ward. The Browns would have loved to get Cam Ward. The Saints would have loved to get Cam Ward. And now knowing what the offer was, according to PK, that the Titans turned down 2 1s and 2 2s from the Giants, I'm like, oh gosh, that could have been. And then to think that if the Browns had gotten involved in a bidding war and the Saints, if the Titans had said, hey, pick's open for business, you don't mean that you could have gotten an extra third out of the Giants, could have gotten a little more out of the, oh no. Oh, goodness. But again, some of you out there will say, hey, Shefty's saying the Browns absolutely wanted Ward. The Giants absolutely wanted Ward, and they're reluctantly taking Dart because they had to get a quarterback, but they wanted Ward. The Saints wanted Ward, but they had to go in the second round for Tyler Shuck because they couldn't get Ward. So that must mean Ward's good, and there is something to that. But just my personal evaluation of Cam Ward is that he's not that good. He has the potential to be that good, but potential is, as the old man once told me, French for not good enough. So today, after hearing of what PK said the trade would have been, I started to massage my brain. And I said, okay, if I was GM, here's what the Titans would look like. Because right now, the Titans look like Cam Ward, plus the trade they made Friday night, Femi Oladejo and Kevin Winston Jr., and pick up the pieces and go from there. If I was quarterback, or if I was general manager, if I was general manager, number 1, Sam Darnold would be the quarterback of the Titans. He did not get offered the 2 years, $80 million guaranteed, which I would have given him. So the 4-year, $160 million contract with the first 2 years guaranteed, I bet you he would have taken, which means Sam Darnold would have been the quarterback. And I think Darnold is more talented than Ward. I think Darnold is more seasoned than Ward. And I believe that he is more ready to lead a team that is devoid of leadership than Cam Ward is. Cam Ward's a rookie. Sam's not. He would immediately become the alpha of the team. And I think he's got some skins on the wall and the experience to handle whatever comes his way. All the growing pains you're going to have to go through with Cam Ward, he's gone through with other teams. And truth be told, and I know this is not a popular opinion, but I believe that Cam Ward will never be as good as Sam Darnold is right now. I believe Sam Darnold is the better player. So Sam Darnold would be the quarterback. Then I would have traded the pick. Let's say the best offer I could have gotten is the one they turned down with the Giants. 2 1s, 2 2s. Well, the first thing I would have done, because I would have made the trade at the combine after I knew I could get Sam Darnold. Just the way the Seahawks traded Geno Smith once they knew they could get Sam Darnold. I would have tried to trade the third pick. We saw what Cleveland got when they traded back. I did not want Abdul Carter. Abdul Carter would have been off my draft board. I think Abdul Carter's got 2 injuries, one of which I do not like for a pass rusher. He did not work out during the draft process, and he kind of comes off to me as an a-hole. So I would have tried to trade the pick. So I would have tried to move from 3 to somewhere around 10, because the player I really liked in the first round this year was Matthew Golden. Him or Tyler Warren or one of those guys. Those are the guys I really liked. And again, I think you would have been better off moving from 3 to 10. If somebody loved Carter, maybe they come up and they make the move. I did not love Carter. If I would have had to go best player available, and I did not do a ton of research on all these other guys because, quite frankly, the Titans were always going to take Cam Ward, I think the best available player at that time who was not hurt was Ashton Genty. And I would have been okay taking a running back at 3 over an injured player. But let's say I would have moved back to 10. So I would have picked up some extra value, maybe a second rounder next year or a first rounder next year, whatever, to move back to 10 so that I could get Matthew Golden. I would have made another trade, again, moving back off of 3. So let's say I have a picked at 10. I would have an extra first round pick. Let's just, for argument's sake, say that I move back from 3 to 10 and picked up a 1 next year. David Reed, is that fair to say? Move back from 3 to 10, pick up a 1 next year?
Yes, please.
Okay. So I pick up a 1 next year. So now I've got Sam Darnold at quarterback, 28 years old. And yes, I'm paying him $80 million. And yes, he's not Mahomes. He's not Allen. He's not Burrow. And he's not going to be that guy. But I've got a quarterback. I've got Darnold. I've got Matthew Golden at wide receiver, who I used the 10th overall pick on, and he would have been there. I would have had pick 34 and pick 35. So when you traded away pick 35 to get Femi Oladejo and to get Kevin Winston, I would have been able to get a better pass rusher, Donovan Ezeraku, who had 16 and a half sacks last year at Boston College. And then I would have been able to draft Nick Emanwari, who does not have a torn ACL, had 4 interceptions last year at South Carolina, including 2 pick sixes at 35. Plus, I'd have New York's first rounder next year, New York's second rounder next year, and plus whatever I got that extra first rounder in exchange for moving back to 10. So I have to ask you, what is a better package? What is better for a football team? And I mean this in all sincerity. Like, I am asking this as a real question. What is better? Darnold, Golden, Ezeraku, Emanwari, the Giants 1 next year, the Giants 2 next year, and a first rounder next year that I picked up from moving from 3 to 10. Or Ward, Femi Oladejo and his 4.5 sacks last year, and Kevin Winston Jr. Which package is better? Darnold, Golden, Ezeraku, Emanwari, 2 1s next year and a second, or Ward, Oladejo, and Winston. And I view the Darnold package as better. And not only do I view the Darnold package as better, I view you as a significantly better football team next year. Not that I care about 2025. I'm more worried about 2026 and 2027 and 2030 and everything else. But Sam Darnold, you're not going to go through the growing pains that you will inevitably have to go through with Cam Ward. You're better at receiver with Matthew Golden. You're better at edge rusher with Ezeraku. You're better at safety with Emanwari. And then think about this. Let's say Darnold sucks next year, which I would not have expected. But let's just say, for argument's sake, Darnold sucked next year. And the Titans should have taken, well, I got 3 number 1s next year. I think I'll be able to get a quarterback. I think I'll be able to trade for a quarterback. I think I'll be able to do whatever I want with 3 number 1s and 2 number 2s. And I think that was the opportunity the Titans had, and they passed on it. And again, I don't know if they passed on it because Amy didn't want to pay the $80 million for the quarterback, because that is kind of the one thing that gets left out, is I'm spending money on the QB. But again, I don't think these two sides compare. Again, Darnold, Golden, Ezeraku, Emanwari, 2 1s and a 2 versus Ward, Oladejo, and Winston Jr. Unless Ward is Mahomes, I don't think these 2 packages are anywhere similar. 615-737-1025. We'll get to your phones again. PK saying that the deal was that the Giants offered 2 1s, 2 2s, and they still took it for Cam Ward. 615-737-1025. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106 for the game.
We considered all things available to us. As far as when and where and how much, that doesn't really matter now at this point. But those conversations, those offers, we did our due diligence, and ultimately we just felt like Cam is a player that we weren't going to let go anywhere else except here to Tennessee. So we arrived at that consensus. It took a lot of work to get there, and I don't think at any point since we made that decision, there's really wasn't any conversations past that. I said it before that I think when you have an opportunity to add a caliber of quarterback like Cam, those things are priceless. There's no price you put on that from draft capital standpoint, because those players end up being what you think they're capable of. Those picks don't matter when it comes to future picks and draft capital, because he's got the ability to be a really fantastic quarterback.
There you go. That was Brian Callahan saying on Thursday night, F them picks. We've got Cam Ward. And again, I think F them picks works if Cam Ward becomes Mahomes. But when you hear PK say on the morning show, New York offered 334, they're 1 next year and they're 2 next year, I'm like, oh, what could have been. 615-737-1025, and our phone line's driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Randy says, I will tell you what, Ward better damn well beat Patrick Mahomes, and he better start leading us to 10 wins next year. If not, Chad Brinker has got to go. If the buck stops with him, then bye-bye, Chad. I'm not going to go that far. Again, I'm not going to put down any number of wins they have to have next year to justify what they did or didn't do. I'm just telling you, in my opinion, it would have been Sam Darnold plus versus what they got. And I don't think Cam is going to be Mahomes. So to me, that would have been a very easy trade to make. I also wonder too, again, the way the Giants put it out there, it's like, hey, we tried. The Titans, they just didn't even want to negotiate. Could you have gotten more out of the Giants? The Giants had 2 third-round picks. Could you have gotten 99 in the third round out of them? I don't know. One texter says, when you say, I don't think these two plans compare unless he's Mahomes, well, no, Jared. Right, wrong, or indifferent, they think he is Mahomes. And if he's not, they are fired. But I know you need something to talk about, and how you're, in your scenario, you're right. Again, I've got people on the text line in YouTube chat that are like, Sam Darnold sucks, even though he threw for 4,300 yards last year and 35 touchdowns, and he ended up, in the Pro Bowl, like on the first ballot, and they made the playoffs and they won 14 games. I know Sam Darnold sucks, according to you all. But we don't know that yet. Like, I am interested to see how he does with the Seahawks. And I don't think the Seahawks are incredibly well run. The Seahawks get rid of all their players. They trade up in order to get Nick Emanwari, who I do love, but man, who's he going to throw the ball to? It's just Jackson Smith and Jigba right now. But maybe. We'll see. I'm interested to see how Sam Darnold plays. One texter says, you would not have gotten the same deal if you had gotten Sam Darnold, because New York would have known that you're not taking a quarterback. No, I would have gotten the same deal, and I might have gotten a better deal. And here's why. It doesn't matter about you taking the quarterback. That doesn't matter. The only instance where it matters about whether or not you would take the quarterback is A, if you for sure are not going to take the quarterback, which even signing Sam Darnold does not mean for sure I'm not going to do. Or B, nobody else except for the Browns want the quarterback. That's it. If only the Browns wanted the quarterback and I signed Sam Darnold, then the Browns could have sat there at 2 and said, okay, I'm going to get him. But if I had signed Sam Darnold, all of a sudden, Vegas at 6, maybe they try to go get Cam Ward, because Geno Smith's probably not an option for them since Seattle needs a quarterback. So now that adds another team that needs a quarterback to the mix. The Saints, as Shefty said, they wanted to go get Cam Ward. The Browns wanted Cam Ward. If all these teams want Cam Ward, it doesn't matter who my quarterback is. It matters who else can offer me more to keep you, New York, you, New Orleans, you, Cleveland, you, Vegas, away from getting the quarterback. That's what really matters. So I think I could have gotten an even better package by having Sam Darnold and basically saying, hey, the pick's for sale, but if not, I'm going to take Travis Hunter. If not, I might just take Cam Ward because I can take a developmental quarterback behind Sam. I mean, I could have done anything. I actually think I could have gotten a better package, but I'm not going to assume that I would have gotten a better package. But I absolutely think that if the Giants were willing to offer that, whether or not you had Darnold or Will Levis, they would have done it. One texter says, someone said the Oladejo pick was the worst pick of the draft for the Titans. You cannot just take a flyer in the second round. That pick is too valuable. So here's what I don't like. I don't like the fact that when the Titans woke up that night, they had two options. Again, safety, edge rusher, which is what they ended up doing. Was they had Ezeraku, a 16.5 sack guy at Boston College, Eman Wari, a 4-interception safety, who I just think is a war daddy that they could have picked up with. I think he's one of those game-changing safeties. The way Xavier McKinney of the Packers is a game-changing safety. And they could have had either guy at 35. They decided to split the baby and move back to 52 and to move back in the third round. And they think they got their pass rusher and safety, but it's a project pass rusher and an injured safety. I understand what they were thinking. I'm not sure I understand or I think that that's going to come to fruition. Like, I understand what they're thinking, but that's not what I would have done. I would have taken the more sure thing. One texter says, so if Cam is not Patrick Mahomes, which means he's the greatest quarterback of all time, or at least a top 5 quarterback, then he's a bust? That's stupid. No, but if he's not a force multiplying quarterback, if he's not in the same discussion with Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow and Josh Allen and Mahomes, then yeah, it was a mistake because of the value you were getting. Here's the thing about quarterbacks in the NFL. There's the elite class. I mean, the truly elite. Everybody wishes they had one of these, and once you get them, you hold on to them no matter what. You use whatever leverage you have in order to keep them the way the Ravens kept Lamar Jackson. You do whatever it takes to make them happy the way the Bengals did it with Joe Burrow. I mean, Josh Allen signed a contract extension that looks like it's $55 million a year because it's a 6-year deal, but he had 4 years remaining on his contract. It's really a $100 million a year extension for Josh Allen. Josh Allen, in new money, got an extra $200 million over the life of the new contract. The original contract was for 4 more years. He signed a contract that has $200 million more in value with 2 extra years. That's $100 million a season. Now, it looks like $55 million a season because they divide the total number by 6, but the extension is really $100 million a year. You do whatever it takes when you've got that guy. That's what Cam has to be in order to justify the trade that they turned down because, again, there's different tiers here at quarterback in the NFL. But that second tier, after Mahomes and Allen and Burrow and Jackson, and what Jaden Daniels and Stroud look like they're going to be, that second tier, those are all, you can go get a Jalen Hurts. You can go get those guys. You can go get Dak, Trevor Lawrence. You can get that guy. That's why San Francisco's in a tough spot. They're going to have to pay Purdy like he's one of those guys, but he's really one of that second-tier group guys. Ward, in order to justify the trade, has to be better than that. Would you trade 2 1s and 2 2s for Purdy? I wouldn't. Bob says, do you know that Sam Darnold wanted to sign here? If all these teams wanted Cam Ward, maybe he's pretty good, but you want to assume that Sam Darnold wanted to be here. Again, Sam Darnold signed a deal that's basically 1 year and $37 million with the Seahawks. I'm offering a deal that would have guaranteed him $80 million. He's going to take the deal. As the great Vito Corleone would say, make him an offer he can refuse. And I think that 4 years, 160, 2 and 80 guaranteed would have been enough to get Darnold here. There's one quarterback out there and you're willing to outpay everybody else, they'll sign here. Make him an offer he can't refuse. That would have been my plan the whole time. Texter says, when Cam turns out to be that guy, please do not run from the criticism you will get for being so damn negative. Oh, I'm not walking away from the idea that I would not have drafted Cam Ward. That if Cam Ward becomes Mahomes, that I'll have to be the guy that say, hey, I wouldn't have taken him. I mean, I didn't like CJ Stroud coming out. CJ Stroud's a superstar. I had Drake May ahead of Jaden Daniels last year. I'm not running away from that. So if you think that first of all, there's two things you got to say. Number one, I am not rooting for Cam Ward to fail. I am a Titan fan. And as a Titan fan, I want to see the Titans get out of the absolute abyss with which they're existing now. I'm skeptical they're going to be able to do that, but I want it dearly. And secondly, I'm not rooting against that young man. That young man seems like a well put together young man. And he seems like a very talented kid. And he seems like the kind of guy that you want to root for. So I am rooting for him. But just like a general manager has to have an opinion and keep it to themselves until they act on it, I have an opinion. My opinion is they should have taken the trade. One texter says, Jared, if that's the real deal and they passed up on it, what the hell is going on? I thought they wanted picks. Well, everybody wants a force multiplier at quarterback, and they seem to think that's what he is. 615-737-1025. More of your phones at 615-737-1025. Plus a bone that I've got to pick with Joe Rexroad before we get to Jared versus Joe at 5 o'clock. We'll get to that coming up. Join Big Joe Dubin and 1025 The Game from 10 to noon at Coleman Tractor of Nashville this Saturday for Kubota Orange Days. There'll be exclusive deals on compact tractors, zero turns, and more with special financing available. The sale runs from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. with demos, deals, giveaways, and lunch from 11 to 1. That's the Coleman Tractor of Nashville, located at 7221 Whites Creek Pike in Jolton this Saturday with Big Joe Dubin.
Welcome in Cam to the program. Cam, good morning. Thanks for calling in.
Good morning, fellas. How are you?
We're good. Good.
Hey, so I hate to do this to you, Joe, but got to hold you accountable for something you said on Friday. You said on Friday after talking to Stillman that if Shedeur dropped to the 5th round, you'd admit that he was a TV prospect.
He dropped to the 4th, right? No, he's in the 5th. He go in the 5th?
He went in the 5th.
Well, we're going to talk about this next hour, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this right now, but let me just tell you, this is so far beyond what anyone, including Stillman, could have guessed. If you guys want to make it about that, that's fine. This is the most shocking thing I've ever seen in the NFL draft.
Oh, I agree with you 100%, and I didn't expect it at all. But the words literally came out of your mouth. Maybe if he drops to the 5th round, I'll admit he's a TV prospect.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
No, you're right.
You got to be held accountable, Joe.
That's fine.
Thanks.
That's fine. That's fine. Thank you, In fact, I because of course Stilly texted us, of course, like
at all hours of the weekend.
And I think what did I say? Like actually, he's a telegraph prospect or like a Victrola radio prospect.
That was Joe on Monday. Good job, by the way, on that caller for saying that apparently Joe said that if he dropped to the 5th, he'd admit he was a TV prospect. And so I took that as an admission from Joe Rexrode, who will be joining us at the top of the hour for our weekly debate, Jared versus Joe. I took that as an admission from Joe Rexrode that he was saying, you're right, I was wrong. Shedeur Sanders was a TV prospect. And have you seen the ratings for the draft this past weekend? Oh, my God. I mean, all 3 days just popped. Why? Because as Yahoo Sports headline says, Shedeur Sanders' NFL draft drama drives up the TV ratings. It was the second most watched first round on record, only compared to COVID. Day 2 and day 3, again, absolutely phenomenal as far as TV ratings are concerned. Why? Because Shedeur was the ultimate TV prospect. And yesterday, I was watching the Robbie and Rexrode program. I mean, I don't know about you guys. I listen on my phone. And because I have YouTube Premium, which is no ads, and all of our shows just stream right there on YouTube, I just pull up YouTube on my phone and I click it and I listen to the shows. And so I pulled up the Robbie and Rexrode program on my phone, and I saw in the YouTube chat a comment from Joe Rexrode that said, quote, he's absolutely a legit quarterback prospect. The TV, and he puts this in quotes, the quote-unquote TV prospect thing has been dumb, and I've dunked on it many times. Also, Shedeur screwed himself. This isn't the kind of talent who can overcome all this BS. So Joe is now arguing again in the YouTube chat that Shedeur wasn't a TV prospect? I'm sorry, what? When Cam Ward was going up to the podium, Mel Kiper Jr., on TV. Mel is not a general manager. He's not a director of college scouting. He's a TV pundit. He's a TV analyst. So on TV, when the Titans were picking Cam Ward, Mel Kiper Jr. on TV was talking about Shedeur. Then all day on Friday, all the talk before the draft was about Shedeur. Then during the draft, all the talk was about Shedeur. Even on NFL Network, Joel Klatt was wondering aloud if Shedeur Sanders could go back to college. Then all the talk, and I know this because I had to go to the Brentwood post office at 5:30 in the morning on Saturday because the term walk-in for a passport application is really misleading. It's really more like go wake up at the crack of dawn and get in line and hope you get one of their appointments for the day, which I did. But I had to sit there on the floor of the Brentwood post office, and I was listening to all the breakdowns after the draft Friday night at 5:30 in the morning. It was all about Shedeur Sanders, the whole thing all day. My mom has opinions and is talking about Shedeur Sanders. My mom couldn't name 2 people in this draft, but she can name Shedeur. He's the definition of a TV prospect. There was no collusion. There was none of that. It was that they didn't think he was that good. And even though he acted like a total a-hole, reportedly, throughout the draft process, if he was good, it wouldn't have mattered because Caleb Williams acted like a total a-hole throughout the entire process, and he still went number 1 overall. Shedeur was a TV prospect. He was a 5th-round draft choice. He was never in Cam Ward's class. Again, just because you act like a doofus in these interviews does not mean that you're all of a sudden you're going to drop 140 spots in the draft. So yes, he was a TV prospect. And what are they talking about on TV? Yesterday, they had Stephen A. Smith and Mike Tannenbaum sitting around the table talking about, is Shedeur going to be the day 1 starter for the Browns? To which Stephen A. said no. He thinks the Browns are going to test Shedeur Sanders by not making him the starter. Remind me, when are they going to break down Gunnar Helm? Jackson Slater, the Titans' 5th-round pick. Does Stephen A. plan on breaking him down? So I got to know, and Jared versus Joe is coming up. Joe, is he a TV prospect or is he not? And if you think he's not a TV prospect, I cannot wait to hear his reasoning as to why he would argue Shedeur Sanders. And look, I didn't think Shedeur Sanders was going to go in the 5th round either. I thought he was going to go 30th overall. And I think he's better than a 5th-round player. But the draft, as Reese Davis said, the draft has spoken. TV prospect. 615-737-1025. Jared versus Joe is next. Stillman and Company, 1025 The Game. and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game National Studios, and we are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. 5 o'clock on a Wednesday, which means Jared versus Joe, and I'm not going to lie. I've been waiting for this Jared versus Joe all week. I have been. After the Shedeur Sanders draft fall, which, by the way, fueled amazing ratings on television for the NFL draft over the weekend, I have been waiting for Jared versus Joe this week. Caroline, can you sense my excitement?
I can sense it. I thought you were just excited to talk to me.
Well, that too. Caroline Fenton, ladies and gentlemen, babysitting extraordinaire. It should be noted as well. So, Joe's with us. Let's waste no more time. Let's get right to Jared versus Joe. Caroline, lead us off.
All right, Joe, I'm going to ask you this question first because to use Jared's word, I know that he has been moist to get to this on Jared versus Joe. Joe, Shedeur Sanders falls to the 5th round. Are you now willing to accept that he was a TV prospect?
Did you just say moist?
I did.
I thought it was very well done.
Thank you very much.
Well, that's actually fitting. So let me get to Jared here for a minute. I'm not sure there's another show in the history of shows in which the host talks more about him or herself. But it's not just talking about himself. It's like Baghdad Bob total PR spin about himself, right? Like it's like you tout this honesty and accountability, Jared, with your show, but when you talk about yourself, that's always it's the rainbows and the puppies and I got you. You actually said this was one of the great takes in radio history. Is that what you said?
I think it belongs in the Take Hall of Fame. The Shedeur Sanders TV prospect take.
Do you remember the premise of your take, Jared? Do you remember the premise of your take?
Yes, that he wasn't that good and that everybody on TV was either friends with Dion or they were trying to ingratiate themselves with Dion or be spared of Dion's ire. And thus they talked about him like he was better than he was.
Right. The premise of your take, Jared, was I don't care about all this talk about he's falling from Indy. That's BS. This is just that they just talked to the people and are finding out he's not a good prospect. When in fact, as we know now, very clearly, as you know, as you have admitted yourself that your agent buddy has told you, he destroyed himself in Indy. So your entire premise that, this is all BS, it's just because he's a TV prospect and Stephen A. talked him up, it's already blown up from the start, and yet you can't even see that.
He was never going to go number 5 overall. It wasn't like he was going to go number 5 overall and then act like an a-hole in Indy and fell off the draft boards.
Right, but the entire argument, going back to when we started this in March, I didn't think he was going number 2 or 5 either.
You had him as the top quarterback in the class.
I still do. So what does that mean? It means I think he's a genuine prospect because you want to just TV prospect. Like you're like a child. Jared, he is a genuine prospect. And Dane Brugler, again, I'll go back to what we talked about the first time. Did Dane Brugler rank him number 34 because of what Stephen A. said, because of Dion? Again, your whole premise was bunk. Was he a huge ratings grabber? Did he get too much attention? Again, I've said this already a million times. He got way too much attention because he's already famous because he's Dion's son, et cetera, et cetera. My whole argument is that, no, but he's actually still a real prospect. And he is. He's a late first, early second prospect who fell to the 5th round because he absolutely bungled this process like no one has ever bungled it before. And I blame his dad for a lot of it. But he destroyed his chances going in there acting like he was obviously a top 10 pick, going in there, apparently not taking teams seriously, being a jerk. Like apparently he and Dable, it was just awful. This is what happened. And again, your premise from the start was TV prospect was that was BS. But you won't. You don't want to go back and correct yourself. It's all about the term TV prospect, and then filleting yourself in public. It's unbelievable.
So what am I supposed to correct myself on? Am I supposed to say, you know what, Shedeur actually was a really, really good prospect, but he was a total a-hole at the combine, so that's why he fell in the draft, not because he's not really that good. Is that what I'm supposed to say? Because Caleb Williams went to the combine last year, and he acted like a total douche, and he didn't fall in the draft. And Marvin Harrison Jr. went to the combine, and he acted like a total a-hole, and he didn't fall in the draft. And you want to know why? Because Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison Jr. were legit prospects. Shedeur wasn't that good. Period.
Listen, you can't compare. First of all, I agree in general with the premise that Caleb could, like someone of that level, could go in and do stuff, and it doesn't matter because he's going number one. Like he actually is correct. He's going number one. I mean, you're the Marvin Harrison thing. What, did one person have a little issue? That's nothing like this, and you know it. This is insane.
Marvin Harrison didn't show up for stuff at the combine. What are you talking about?
Okay. And again,
Marvin Harrison didn't even agree to his licensing deal to be in the video games and get a jersey sold because he was being such an a-hole.
Do you want to compare that to this? This is insane, Jared. And again, your whole premise was that's nothing. It has nothing to do with he's not real. Jared, you changed your definition of TV prospect. Like how many times? First of all, you're like, well, he's not a real prospect. Stephen A. is BSing. And then you turned into, all this talk that it was 1-2. Media wants a 1 and 2. Well, I agree. Media always wants a 1 and 2. Is it obviously go back to Manning and Leaf? Is it, Williams?
Well, you can go further than that. You can go Meyer and Bledsoe. You can, that's not the first time it's been 1-2.
Yeah, that's a media thing. But again, this boils down to, it's probably just semantics. But is he a TV prospect? If he's a real prospect, he screwed himself in the process. He should have gone in the second round for sure, and he didn't because he's not as good as he thought he was. But also, like, if you're a team and it's like, this is someone we're talking about leading our franchise, and that's what you get, then also, why would you even want to deal with him as a backup? Him as a backup is a nightmare idea.
Because he's a TV prospect.
Okay, Jared. Okay.
That's why he's not. That's why teams are like, I don't know if we can bring him in as a backup because he's such a TV prospect that if he comes in here and we're the Arizona Cardinals and we start off 1-3, as it feels like Arizona often does. Stephen A. and those guys are going to be yelling and screaming to bench Kyler Murray for Shedeur. That's the whole reason why nobody wants him as a backup.
I don't disagree.
And nobody wants him as a starter because he's not that good.
That's fine. We'll see. We'll see if he gets a chance. Again, I don't love any quarterback in this class. Said that all along. I wouldn't take him or Cam Ward high in this draft. Said that all along. I would take him first. I value his accuracy. Now, I will say that is me talking about him as a player. As these details have come out, you do have to rethink a little bit. Like, is this guy just going to – I hope this humbles him. And I hope that he – figure this out. Like, yeah, you're sort of at the bottom now and you got a lot to prove, and like everybody's going to be ready to pounce on every mistake. But like, he actually believed his dad, who doesn't get nearly enough crap in all of this for the way he botched this situation. And it's unbelievable. But again, your premise, one, that he didn't hurt himself in Indy. That's all blah, blah, blah. And also, again,
I do not remember saying he didn't hurt himself in Indy. I'm the one who said on Thursday,
Jared,
and you texted me and you said that it was disingenuous that I didn't say this until Thursday when I didn't have the information until Thursday. But I said, like, I heard that he went to the combine and pissed everybody off. I said it on Thursday when I got the information.
Right. But again, your premise of he's a TV prospect was one, that, and you did say it, that all this narrative come out of Indy that he might have hurt himself in the interviews, whatever. It's just because the reporters talked to personnel people and have found out he's not good. And two, the dumbest part that because Stephen A. is friends with Dion, he's talking him up, and then everybody else
Not
is
just
like
Stephen A.
deferring to Dion?
All of them.
Every
Rich
single
Eisen's friends
analyst,
with
Jared.
Dion. And Peter
great.
Schrager's friends with Dion.
Dane
And
Brugler
Lewis
is friends
Riddick
with
is friends
Dion.
with Dion. They're all friends with Dion,
Okay.
and they don't want to say anything bad about Dion, because if you say anything bad about Shador, Dion's going to go after you, and nobody wants to deal with that because nobody has the cojones to deal with that. But that is a reality, and I even sent all of you a screenshot
Jared.
of an awful announcing article that hypothesized the exact thing, which was, maybe there's too many people in the media that are too friendly with Dion, and that led to this.
Do you know
Are you
how
saying
many
that's not
aren't
the
friendly
case?
with him? Jared, do you know how many aren't friendly with him? Because I'll give you a list of people I work with who aren't. A lot of people are not friendly with him at all because he's terrible with media at Colorado. So I want you to tell me, I'll go through all the analysts, every single one. What's the lowest ranking of him? And I want you to tell me that every single ranking of Shador Sanders as a prospect in this draft is related to deferring to
Well,
Dion.
you bring up Dane Brugler, right?
Prospect.
Dane Brugler, I believe, had Shador around like 40 on like his final top 100 in the
34.
Beast. 34. Right. Not anywhere near Cam Ward's zip code. Not even in the same vicinity, ballpark, anything.
You're changing the terms, but you're
No, I'm
changing
not.
the terms.
No, I'm not.
34. So 34.
You're saying that the
which is
TV
lowest
prospect
I
thing
know,
was all
is
because,
not a
and I
legit
don't even
prospect.
remember this, but you're saying that my
course
take
you
was
don't.
that started this was that, okay, they all went to the combine and they all came back and said Cam Ward is by far, hands down, the number one quarterback prospect. And I say, yeah, because Shador was a TV prospect. It was never Cam and Shador. As much as all the talk was Cam and Shador, Cam and Shador, Cam and Shador, it was never Cam and Shador because Shador's not that good. And that the only reason that anybody brought him into the discussion of Cam and Shador, Cam and Shador, Cam and Shador is because Shador is a TV prospect. He is a star. I stand by that. It wasn't like when Shador started falling, we had these Cam and Jackson Dart conversations, Cam and Tyler Shuck. We didn't do any of that. No, it was always Cam and Shador, Cam and Shador. And the reason why it wasn't in the end Cam and Shador is because Shador wasn't that good. And the reason why teams didn't overlook him being an a-hole, unlike Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison Jr., is because unlike those guys, he's not an elite prospect. He's an elite TV prospect, like a wrestler.
So again,
or like the Dallas
the
Cowboys
only-
without Dak Prescott. They get good
So
TV
if
ratings.
you're
They're not
ranked
that
the
good.
Right. If you're ranked the number 34 prospect, look, Mel Kiper had him 5. That's the range, I guess. Mel Kiper from Mel Kiper 5, I guess you're saying he's like in Dion's pocket, down to
Mel
Brugler
is
at
something with
34.
the Dion crew. I don't know what it is, but he's something.
Okay. So again, everybody else falls in probably in between those numbers with Shador Sanders. So you're telling me that that's not, none of that is legitimate ranking of a prospect.
I mean,
And also
I
you're
think that
saying
if you're 30,
you're either an elite
if you're
prospect or a
viewed,
TV prospect.
if you're viewed as a top, like if you're viewed as Tyler Shuck, like if you're in that discussion, you're not viewed as a big time prospect. And I still don't view Tyler Shuck as a big time prospect. And I don't think anybody viewed Tyler Shuck as a big time prospect. But that's the range you're talking about, is the Tyler Shuck range, the Donovan Ezaraku range, the, again, like the second round, third round, just on about our day. Not the Cam Ward, Jaden Daniels, Caleb Williams, Drake May, not that level where, again, it's wall-to-wall coverage. No, he's a TV prospect. More Jared versus Joe to continue next here on the program. Although that was quite a rebuttal from Joe. More Jared versus Joe next. Stillman & Company, 102.5 The Game. Nate on Twitter is mad. Caroline at the question asking.
Joe's whining on Twitter too.
Saying that Jared versus Joe today is a predetermined outcome because of the first question. Can I just offer a rebuttal to that? Joe could have said, yes, after the draft, I realized Jared was right and Shedeur was a TV prospect. It's Joe.
Why would I say your stupid catchphrase was right? Why?
Because it was. It was more right than I thought it was going to be, Joe.
No, it was actually more wrong. You got all this new information, like you just admitted, but you haven't entered that in the conversation at all. You've conveniently left that out of the conversation, which is exactly what you do. You seize on something, especially some dumb catchphrase, and then it doesn't matter like what you're actually arguing or what the circumstances are. You're just going to come up with any way to continue to say your catchphrase. And again, you got the information, like you said last week, that this was such a bleep show. But of course, that doesn't matter. Even though, again, your initial argument was that wasn't the case. You're not going to change. You're not going to admit anything. Get out of here with your garbage.
Well, I don't have to after Shedeur Sanders dominated TV all week and got picked in the 5th round. Caroline, what's next?
I have two things. First of all, everyone says be fair. It's not my job to be fair. I'm not a lawyer. This isn't the U.S. justice system. My job is to create an entertaining segment, and I believe that we did just that. Second of all, I think everyone's conveniently forgetting that I was on Joe's side this entire time. I think TV prospect is a silly term because I think that you can be a TV prospect and you can be a legit prospect. Like Arch Manning is the biggest TV prospect of all time. But
well, let's watch him play football. Prospect. Let's watch him play football in college, though, before we, like, if Arch doesn't do anything this year at Texas, I'm not going to be like, oh, yeah, well, he must be good because he's a Manning. But he absolutely will get talked about the same way. Oh, for sure. But then he'll be a TV prospect. If Arch
he's been a TV prospect since he was in high school.
I know, but if Arch, like, actually plays well in college this year and looks like a first-round quarterback, then it's different.
Is it?
Yeah, like if you're a legitimate high-end prospect, I mean, I think we can all agree.
Like,
Arch
we're going
has
to talk about Arch Manning differently than we talked about Caleb Williams. With as much love we gave Caleb Williams, Arch Manning will get even more.
Really? Like if Arch Manning is that much,
is Manning,
right? But
I like severely underestimating people's obsession.
Oh no,
with that family and
I think if he doesn't play well, it'll be a TV prospect. But like if Arch Manning wins the Heisman Trophy and is head and shoulders the best quarterback in college football, and he is like, you just watch him and you're like, that guy's going number one, then he's not a TV prospect, then he's just a legit prospect, which Shedeur never was.
How about you come up with a different term? Can you come up with a different term?
No, I was right, and it was great, and I loved how much it must pain you. If you were arguing against anybody else, Joe, you would have said I was wrong, and Robbie or Paul or whoever was right, and he was a TV prospect. Because I said it, you won't admit it. Caroline, what's next?
Okay, Jerry, you go first. Was Cam Ward wrong in asking Warren Moon to wear the number 1? And were the Titans wrong for letting him do it?
Yes and yes. Number 1, I know because I heard Paul say today that the Cam didn't go to the Titans to ask for number 1. Cam just went to Warren directly. How did Cam get Warren Moon's phone number? I mean, he had to go through the Titans.
How would that be hard? Why? You think it's hard to get Warren Moon's number?
Well, I think for Cam Ward, it's you call the Titans and they give you Warren Moon's number, and no, it's not hard. But I mean, how many other people does Cam Ward know that know Warren?
That could have been the way he did it, but it doesn't.
That's probably what he did.
The way he did it.
So again, I think he went to the Titans, and the Titans said, "Okay, here's Warren's number. Call Warren." I don't know. I wonder if the Titans paid Warren, hey Warren, it'd be great. Here's $50,000. Here's $100,000. Whatever it costs to unretire. I don't know, but I do not think that Cam Ward should have asked Warren for his number. I don't think the Titans should have given it to Warren or should have given it to Cam. Even if Warren said, okay, I would, if I owned the Titans, I would not have allowed it, because the way I view a retired jersey is you're such a great player to our franchise that nobody will ever wear this number again, because this is your legacy, not because in a couple of years, the flavor of the month will want to wear the jersey because he thinks it's cool, so let's unretire it. And I think it is disrespectful to put Warren in a position or to put Lawrence Taylor in a position to where they have to say no to somebody who asks them for something that they've earned. And then finally on this front, I keep hearing people say things like, well, Warren played for the Oilers and not for the Titans. Well, I view Oiler history as Titans history. Why? Because the Titans have said that Oiler history is Titans history. So as a fan, I do take pride in Earl Campbell and Warren Moon and Robert Brazil and George Blanda and so on and so forth. That is the franchise that I root for. If you want to say that they're totally separate, then give the uniforms back to the Texans and Houston and everything else and go on about your business the way the Ravens have become the Ravens. But I view it the same as Johnny U being retired by Indianapolis, even though he played in Baltimore. So, and the other thing that bothers me is Abdul Carter asked for Lawrence Taylor's number, and Lawrence Taylor said, hell no. Good for LT. But I think in there is this, well, Warren Moon was a good player, but Warren Moon wasn't as good as LT. And to me, they're the same. The numbers are retired. They're both in the Hall of Fame. Warren has earned the right for his number to be retired and for nobody else to wear it. And I don't think they should. I would not, if I owned the team, have even let Cam put Warren in the position to ask for it. If it had been, hey, is there any chance I can wear number 1? I'd say no, period. And I hate this unretiring number stuff and just this disrespect to the NFL and history. So I hate it.
I'll make this quick because otherwise this will go to about 7 p.m. I don't know that Cam Ward was wrong for asking, but I'd like him and these other prospects coming in to think a little bit about the difficulty you're already facing to make it in the NFL. And, just the target you're adding to yourself by trying to get these retired numbers. I hope this trend ends. I think it's stupid. So I just, I don't know that he was wrong, but I would agree. I don't think the Titans should do it. I don't think they should have done it. I love that LT said, no, man, make your own way. And again, I just really hope this ends. It does not become this thing. I mean, that's what retired numbers are. That's why it's awesome to retire a number, because it's never in circulation again. That's the whole point. Now, I do think there's a little bit of a difference with Titans. You may think of it that way, Jared, but there are people who don't. There are people who couldn't care less about whatever happened in Houston and only care about what happened from Nashville on. So it's not exactly the same as the Giant situation, but I don't think the Titans should do it at all.
Well, the owner wears an Oiler belt buckle, so I think it's important to her, and I don't think she's giving up the Oiler history. I could be wrong. I don't know, but I absolutely hate it. And the other thing, too, I didn't know this until yesterday. The Giants unretired a number for Malik Neighbors to wear that was the first number retired in the history of the NFL. Ray Flaherty had his number unretired. He played in 1935. The last time a Giant player wore number 1 before Malik Neighbors did last year was in 1935. 89 years without somebody wearing number 1. This guy's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I assume and I mean this in all seriousness, he played in the days of the leather helmets. And we're going to unretire his number for Malik Neighbors? And Malik Neighbors is good, but really? Do we not respect history at all? And apparently the answer is no. So that drives me up a wall. I went crazy when I found that out yesterday, and I didn't even know who Ray Flaherty was. Caroline, what's next?
But I also think it's disingenuous if you're a Titans fan that says the Oiler uniforms are ours. They belong to us. Suck it, Texans.
Give them to Houston.
And then say, well, Cam Ward can wear number 1 because Warren Moon was an Oiler. You cannot believe both things.
And here's the other thing that pisses me off about that too, by the way. The idea of the Oilers, we're the Titans. I went to Vanderbilt Stadium. I cheered for that team. They were the Tennessee Oilers for 2 years. And I cheered for that team. And Steve McNair and Eddie George and Chris Sanders and Derek Mason and all those guys, Blaine Bishop and Marcus Robertson and Eddie Robinson, and those guys all played for the Oilers. Bruce Matthews. So, I consider myself an Oilers Titans fan. And the amount of people that are don't care. I'm like, how? Hank Aaron played in Milwaukee more than he played in Atlanta. And he retired well before I was born, and I still care a lot about Hank Aaron. I don't get it. I'm on a rant. Caroline, go ahead.
Well, and as much as we like to think that they do, teams do not belong to cities. They belong to people. I learned that the hard way. Okay. Last one, Joe, you go first. What's the bigger clown show? The Cleveland Browns or Bill Belichick?
Oh, good Lord. I mean, I probably. This is actually a really hard question. I mean, it's like over years and years, the Browns win this in a landslide. But right at this moment, I got to say, the whole Belichick thing is really concerning to me. Like, I just don't understand. And, everybody's had their say and their jokes and all that stuff, 50-year difference and all that. But, like, his apparent just total misunderstanding of PR is so weird to me. I mean, he's been a public figure for like 40 years, going back to when he was D coordinator under Bill Parcells. That's when people started to know Bill Belichick, 3-4 defensive LT and all those guys. But 40 years, you've been dealing with this that's New York media 40 years ago. And it's like he's willing to sit here and let his girlfriend completely savage her own image publicly, and also put doubt in the minds of all North Carolina fans and boosters and collective donors and recruits. I mean, it's just insane to me. And they keep putting stuff out. Like today, they keep putting stuff out to extend this story. Like it's wild to me. And now I go back and it's like, God, he also made Matt Patricia like his unnamed fake OC a few years ago. Like I gotta say, man, I'm a little worried about Bill. But I mean, if we're really going to compare these two things, I still would have to give Cleveland the edge there.
I actually think it's not even close. I think it's Belichick. And I'll tell you why. Cleveland had a great weekend. I do. Cleveland had a great weekend. I mean, that trade they pulled off with Jacksonville, that was a great trade. Where you basically pick up 2 second-rounders and 2 first-rounders to move back 3 spots and still get Mason Graham. Like, that's a great trade. Like, I thought that was a great trade on Thursday night. I mean, because I wanted the Titans to make one of those trades. I mean, it hurt to watch Cleveland make that trade. Number 2, Cleveland ended up with Shedeur Sanders, who, again, I don't want Shedeur Sanders to be my franchise quarterback, and I wouldn't put all my eggs in his basket. But they took a flyer in the 5th round on him. They could cut him, and it won't matter. Like that, he could be their starting quarterback. And even if he's not their starting quarterback, even if it is a bad year this year or whatever, that's the pittance they're paying for that Deshaun Watson trade. They're going to go into next year with 2 high first rounders, with 2 second rounders or whatever, and a roster of players that I think can play. I mean, they've got good players on that team. They've got 2 running backs now that I think are going to be really good running backs in the NFL. Like, I think Cleveland's actually in a position to be okay. And if Shedeur Sanders actually does become a good NFL quarterback, then that's an absolute steal as they get out of the Deshaun mess after this year. He won't be on the team next year. Belichick, like, it's officially over. And this started when Brady left to go to Tampa Bay and won the Super Bowl, and I think it broke Belichick's brain because Belichick's identity was in him being the greatest coach ever and him being this authoritarian ruler who everybody did whatever he said, and everything he said went, and everything he said was just gospel, to all of a sudden everybody around the country, not just in New England, but everybody around the country really wondering, is Belichick really that good of a coach? Because he wasn't that good of a coach in Cleveland. They were 5-11 that first year with Bledsoe. And then the just disastrous run post Brady in New England. It's kind of like, yeah, Belichick won all those Super Bowls, but nobody sits there and says, hey, Shula won all those Super Bowls in Miami, but nobody says Tom Landry won. But nobody says that about Walsh. Walsh, and I know he didn't technically win the Super Bowl with Steve Young as the coach, But he built a team that won with Montana, and he built a team that won with Young. And so nobody says that about the other coaches, but they say that about Belichick. And then Belichick, goes after Brady leaves. Clearly, Brady wins the Super Bowl, and now Brady's got the leg up, and Bill, it broke his brain. He went on this tour where he just decided, I'm going to have to prove that I'm so much smarter than everybody else, and that's why he made Matt Patricia his offensive coordinator and ruined whatever chance Mac Jones had. And then after that, it's just been one mistake after another, and this is a disaster. He should have never gone to college. He should have gone to the NFL and told all the owners, hey, I'll play nice with the general manager. I just want to coach the team. I just want to bring discipline and order and everything else, and I want a shot. Instead, he goes to college, which I don't think he knows anything about college football. He goes to college, and he's got this 24-year-old woman who's like his PR guru. He's been doing interviews longer than she's been alive. He's been talking to CBS longer than she's been alive, and he's going to let her just call all the shots? Bill? And he's got her around the football facility. Could you imagine if a player wanted to bring their wife around the facility when Bill was the coach in New England? That would have never happened. And so I think with Belichick, I'm worried about him, but I think his brain is broken. And I think we're starting to see the real-time decline in Belichick's, trying to think of the right way to say this,
legacy,
cognitive abilities. Because I think the Belichick from 10 years ago would kick Belichick today in the ass. I think he'd make so much fun of Belichick. Again, Belichick 15 years ago, 10 years ago, he would have made so much fun of this Belichick. Let's not overlook the fact that the reason Belichick did the CBS interview is because Belichick was trying to sell books, something that Belichick would have never done as coach of the Patriots. He would have been like, shouldn't you be worried about building your football team instead of trying to sell books? So I'll tell you, I think the Browns actually had a pretty decent weekend. I don't feel bad for Dylan Gabriel, but I think they had a pretty decent weekend. I think his career's over. And to Joe's point, his legacy. I think he's just throwing it in the trash. Bill, bigger dumpster fire. Caroline, who wins this week?
And it's wild to me that at this point, the least of our worries is the age gap. And that age gap is the same as me and my grandfather, Bill and his girlfriend. That's disgusting.
Just think about that. Just think about that loose, and Bill's probably a little hairy.
Stop it. Enough.
Like that
Enough.
loose skin
Enough.
and hairy and just.
It's dinner time.
God.
Goodness gracious. It's disgusting. I would agree with you. It's definitely Bill Belichick. What a freaking dumpster fire. Much to the chagrin of Joe Rexroad and Nate on Twitter, Jared wins this week. Not because I agree with him. Not because I agree with him. I never have. I think that TV prospect is a stupid and a silly term. I disagree, but he was right. The draft proves that. All of the outrage after the draft has proven that. And the way that the Cleveland Browns will be covered for the next few months will continue to prove that. So I don't agree, but he was right.
I don't know how you can be more of a clown or less of a clown. No, I don't know how you can be more of a clown show than Belichick has been this past week. And to Joe's point, the fact that they're putting out statements just continues the story more and more, which is also kind of embarrassing. Joe, congratulations. Maybe tomorrow in your own program, you'll admit that you were wrong about Shedeur Sanders and I was right.
I think what I need to do is I need to have the rant about it's time for Jared versus Joe to come to the mornings. You've wasted too much of my time.
No, thank you. 615-737-1025.
Management.
Speaking of Belichick, we now have statements that have come out, both from Bill and from CBS. I do want to touch on those next. Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game.
The other change for Belichick is 24-year-old Jordan Hudson, his creative muse, as he writes in his book.
Make sure that that's the.
Jordan was a constant presence during our interview.
You have Jordan right over there. Everybody in the world seems to be following this relationship. They've got an opinion about your private life. It's got nothing to do with them, but they're invested in it. How do you deal with that?
Never been too worried about what everybody else thinks. Just try to do what I feel like is for me and what's right.
How did you guys meet?
Not talking about this.
No.
No.
It's a topic neither one of them is comfortable commenting on, though Hudson has recently posted about it on Instagram.
You joined InstaFace, as you put it. I love that. There's some great pictures of you and Jordan where you're a fisherman and she's a mermaid. It's charming. It's a different side of you. What's the reaction been like?
What's it been like?
To have these different sort of photos. There's another one where you're doing, I know you're not into meditation or yoga or Pilates. You're balancing Jordan on your feet. She's doing kind of the Titanic pose.
Yeah, so I'm on some of those social media platforms, but I honestly don't follow them.
That was Belichick on CBS. Belichick has released a statement through North Carolina, and it should be noted, Belichick was wearing a Navy hoodie when he did or like a Navy shirt when he was doing the interview, not a North Carolina shirt. I was surprised by that. And apparently nobody from North Carolina was there for the interview with CBS. It was just Jordan Hudson, who is basically his personal PR person, and a lot more than that. But he released a statement, quote, "I agree to speak with CBS Sunday morning to promote my new book, The Art of Winning, Lessons from My Life in Football. Prior to this interview, I clearly communicated with my publicist at Simon & Schuster that any promotional interviews I participated in would agree to focus solely on the contents of the book." He then says, unfortunately, the expectation was not honored during the interview, and then throws CBS under the bus, saying the final 8-minute segment does not reflect the productive 35-minute conversation we had, which covered a wide range of topics related to my career. Instead, it presents selectively edited clips and stills from just a few minutes of the interview to suggest a false narrative that Jordan was attempting to control the conversation, which is simply not true. Again, that's UNC Stationery. CBS has released on CBS Stationery from CBS News. Again, CBS News with Walter Cronkite. The same brand said, "When we agreed to speak with Mr. Belichick, it was for a wide-ranging interview. There were no preconditions or limitations to this conversation. This was confirmed repeatedly with his publisher before the interview took place and after it was completed." It sounds like Bill, in trying to do damage control, has just continued the news cycle with this being a discussion. And CBS has fired back at Belichick's lengthy statement and it said, yeah, that's not true. I heard Charles Barkley say on Dan Patrick today he may call Belichick and just check in on him. I think there's one person who can get through to him. Brady. I think Tom Brady needs to call Bill Belichick. I think Tom Brady needs to go to Chapel Hill. I think Tom Brady needs to have an intervention of some sort with Bill Belichick because he's lost it. And this statement from North Carolina, that's embarrassing. And it's embarrassing to UNC, and I don't think UNC is going to put up with too much more of this. So if I was Brady, I know that they had issues and everything else, but it's something to be said for Brady to try to save Bill's legacy because it's getting worse by the minute. There's one final takeaway I have from the draft. And it's somebody whose opinion I don't care for, but I think I'd like to hear more of. I'll explain. We'll get to it next. Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game.
I'll be frank and I'll be honest. You cannot convince me that Shedeur is the 6th best quarterback in this class.
And I'm not arguing with you.
And no one can convince me of that. I think there's a bigger conversation that needs to be had as to the why. Is it being held? We heard our own Jonathan Jones talk about the NIL era and who his father is. And I don't understand why we're holding that. If that's what's being held against him, why we're holding that against this kid. All right, let's just say he has a maturity issue. Let's just say he does. He has not done anything criminal and done anything that would put an organization in a bad light. And there are quarterbacks that have gone in the 1st, in the 2nd, in the 3rd that I do not think are better quarterbacks than Shedeur.
Yeah.
And there have also been players taken that have had criminal past and background issues, and yet they still come off the board and given a chance. I don't understand why this young man has to suffer because of what people perceive him to be.
That was Rand Carthon on CBS Sports HQ doing draft breakdowns this weekend. Somebody said, you got to go see what Rand said about Shedeur Sanders. So I went and listened to it. Not bad. Like, I'm not sure I could ever take Rand Carthon's personnel advice seriously after watching him be a general manager for 2 years, but I actually think he's pretty good at the TV thing. And I think that Rand Carthon should be an NFL draft analyst. And I truly believe that. All right, that's it for us. We're out of here. Chasing Checkers is up next. Stillman and Company. We'll see everybody tomorrow at 2.